Hello folks and welcome to our game here this Thursday morning with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney, the man who is of course a fresh father these days.
Not fresh, unfresh.
It's like when like you have a new parent and all they can see is, oh, how would this thing affect the baby? How would that thing affect the baby? A friend of mine bought a house a few years ago. Couldn't walk past the house without talking about, geez, that's a Munster joinery door there. You won't shut up about the baby, will you, at this stage?
No, I definitely won't be going on about Munster joinery doors or anything like that. I have absolutely zero interest in that scenario. Anyway, I got a good dollop of puke on my arm this morning to wake myself up. But that's the nature of it at the moment. Sure, you have to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah. What did you call the baby again?
Holly. Hollie. Yeah.
Lovely.
Buddy Holly or hardcore Holly.
Right, okay, that's a wrestling reference, I think. We're going to have Ciaran Carey on the show. Like myself, maybe he had a bit of a late start this morning. You can see the bags under my eyes. Sully180, your buddy, says at least now with the baby, it gives him an excuse for looking like he was dragged through a hedge. Hey, he's not the only one this morning.
Yeah, I'm going to get cleaned up a bit later. I'm going to the derby on Sunday, and I can't really land in with this head on me, so I might clean myself up a bit.
Where's the derby on Sunday?
Derby's in the Curragh, yeah.
Inside in the Curragh, yeah. Right, big weekend coming. Like, we're going to be talking loads of hurling like we always do. But this is a huge weekend of football, and there's a bit of a furore about how there'll be no match on Saturday free to air, that the two games are both behind the paywall. And interestingly enough, we all know what's going on with RTE at the moment, and the Director General, Dee Forbes, has stepped down. And she was a director of GA Go. But she stepped down from all roles, including that. So I'm just wondering how that will affect things going forward and what sort of ground GA Go is on. Maybe it's an absolutely grand ground. But people are again frustrated that this game isn't going to be, that neither of these games on Saturday are going to be on TV.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Listen, as well as that, there's no Saturday game on Saturday evening, which if you were to pick one day of the year where you think there should definitely be Saturday game on here, it's surely this. It's surely where there is literally no GA free to air. I'm sure they get a big audience of people who haven't seen the games and have maybe only been listening to them or following them maybe online or whatever. So to me, this is the perfect opportunity to have a Saturday game. But I believe the last Saturday game was last weekend, which I just think is a bit bonkers. It doesn't really make much sense to me. And there's obviously a bit of a furore about the two games being behind the paywall. Kerry have had 6 championship games this year. 4 have been behind the paywall. 1 was on RT. I think that was the Turkey shoot that was the Munster final, and 1 wasn't on TV at all. So like, I don't know. Is it any coincidence that football's greatest draw, David Clifford, has been behind the paywall for nearly every game this year? I'd say there's probably a fair chance that that's not a coincidence.
He's football's answers to the Munster Hurling Championship in a way. So
I said that in a column. I said that in a column the other day, and I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of the juiciest Munster Championships games were behind the paywall, and that David Clifford is behind the paywall as well.
So that means on Saturday, Armagh Monaghan and Tyrone Kerry, they're both behind the paywall. I'm going to be in at both of those games. Really looking forward to them. I think the beauty about these 4 quarterfinals is you can't predict how any of them will go. I honestly couldn't really, with any massive confidence, call a victor in any of these 4 games. When have we had that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you want. Even you're looking at Derry and Cork and you're thinking, yeah, Derry are favourites and they're motoring along nicely, but Cork are after getting a real bounce. I put it this way, if Roscommon were playing Derry, you'd give Roscommon a fair squeak. Cork are coming in with momentum now, having beaten them at the weekend. That's going to be interesting. Kerry and Tyrone, that rivalry, I think it's 4 apiece. I think it's 4 apiece in championship games since, the early noughties or whatever. Then you have Dublin Mayo. We'll get into this maybe with Alan Brogan later. Like, is Dublin Mayo the greatest GA rivalry of definitely the last 20 years or so? It could well be. We'll chat a bit more about that. And then you have Armagh and Monaghan, 2 teams that have not frequented semi-final spots, and one of them is going to be there. And if you'd said if you'd said at the start of the year that Monaghan would be in All-Ireland semi-final, I'd say a good few people would have laughed at you, just given the turnover of bodies, new manager, etc. But they're just kind of trucking along, and it's a belter of a weekend. This is when the football championship really comes alive.
So, how many All-Ireland quarterfinals have Kerry ever been in?
Oh God. See, there wouldn't have been.
They only in quarterfinals. They're only a modern thing because it was All-Ireland semi-finals up until 2001.
How many years have they missed them since they were out of the Super 8 in 18 without getting out of the group? I think I might be right in saying, was it 18?
Yeah. 19, sorry, there was no quarters in 2020 and 2021, so there was Super 8s there in, was it 18 and 19?
I would say nearly since the quarters came in, they've been in every one, bar that Super 8 one in 18.
Yeah, they've never missed one since the qualifier system was introduced in 2001, and they've only ever lost 2 quarterfinals. Now, if you could pull this out of the hat, fair play to you.
Donegal in 12.
Yeah, that's fair going.
Donegal in 12. Oh, you have me. It's before that, isn't it?
It's a couple of years before that. I'm pretty sure Tomás O'Shea and Paul Galvin were both unavailable for the game.
Did they play Cork in the quarterfinal? I can't remember.
No,
go on.
Down 2010.
Jesus, right, okay. Forgotten all about that one now, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm going to go through some comments here. Tom O'Keane, who's Delaney? So we've written on the show there, Carey, Delaney and Brogan. So that's JJ Delaney.
There's only one. We probably should have said JJ, to be fair.
Yeah, Liam Lenihan, there'll be holy war if RT try that GA carry on with the hurling quarters or semi. Will there? I mean, was there holy war with Munster? It was a huge topic, but doesn't mean it's necessarily changed.
Now, the one thing I'd say about the Sky deal had 2 All-Ireland football quarterfinals as part of it. Always had. But the Sky deal and GA Go are not like for like. The Sky deal is you click on your television and you watch your match there on TV. GA Go is not as reliable. Let's call a spade a spade. You're relying on broadband or you're relying on the internet, which sometimes lets you down. And I know there have been instances this year where people have had jumpy screens for matches. That wouldn't happen with Sky Sports. So to me, like, it's not like for like necessarily.
No, sure. Like, even I was trying to enjoy the Tip Offaly game here a few weeks ago, and the coverage went down for the last 6 or 7 minutes. To be fair, you've gotten away with this lovely now about the Tip Offaly thing. You conveniently disappeared there for a few weeks, baby or no baby. You conveniently disappeared. What was your take on that game?
Timing.
What was the score again? 738 to 318.
Oh, let's call it a spade a spade. It was one of the lowest days probably in our history. It was brutal, and the game was over after about 10 minutes. And you had a Tipperary team who were obviously very, very poor against Waterford. There was a bit of a reaction from them or whatever against Offaly, but there was very little reaction from our lads from the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Obviously, David Nally was unavailable, and I don't think Shane Dooley was involved either, but with no excuses really. It kind of, do you know what? I think that was the final nail in the link between the McDonagh and the All-Ireland series. I think that's probably, and if that's the purpose that it serves, then I'm moderately okay with that. But that's the gap. That's the gap between teams maybe ranked even 7 or 8 or 9 and even 10, 11, 12. Like, and maybe we might even be a bit further down than that. The gap between the top 2 or 3 and the next 3 or 4 is big, and then between the next 3 or 4 is bigger again. And that was just highlighted the other day. And I'd say that result has confirmed that the link will probably be severed between the McDonagh and the All-Ireland series.
Yeah, A Sully 180. What way are Tip fixed in the championship?
Same way as Offaly
are. 36 and counting says, Shane, will Rush be back for an Fianna this year or Dubs next year? The honest truth is, I don't know. I know he's down in Australia with a few of the other hurlers. I don't know if they're all hanging out together, but I've definitely seen Keane O'Callaghan and Chris Crummy hanging out. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I suppose it's all up in the air.
I'd be surprised if he was back for Dublin, being honest with you. Liam's had a fantastic career with Dublin, but I think when you step away for a year at his age, I'd be surprised if he went back in with Dublin. That's just my own opinion, especially with his kind of checkered injury past in recent years. But what a phenomenal player, and like what a boost he's given the Fianna in the last couple of years as well. And they've been so close to getting over the line. Be surprised if he wasn't back to play a part at some stage.
Yeah, he turned 33 there about 2 weeks ago. So like, right, if you were Micheál Donoghue and he came back for next season, so before the championship starts, well, he's still 33. He'll be 34 midway through the championship, assuming they're alive at this stage of the season. But would you be like, right, let's get him in and see if we can keep him fit? I think I would.
Yeah, probably as a forward, I would say.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the forward line. I think as a manager, I think you're not really. I don't think you're looking at next year or the year after. A lot of the time, I think you're looking at what can we do now, and maybe what could Liam Rush do to help develop X, Y, and Z around him? What can he bring to the camp? That type of thing. So I think you should never cut off your nose to spite your face. I see Niall Moran, who we're well accustomed to here, was kind of saying. He was saying on Game On that he thinks Noel McGrath should step away, and I think we're at a kind of time now where once someone hits 30 and if they have a bad game or they're quiet, we kind of think they should step away. To me, this was Noel McGrath's best season with Tip in a good while. I thought he was really consistent throughout. He's probably the best player throughout the Munster Championship in that he played nearly every minute of every game and was one of the few that stood up against Waterford. He had a quiet game the other night against Galway, but I think I'd have Noel McGrath in a different bracket than I'd have maybe Seamus Callan or Bonner Matter in, I'd say, because he brought a serious level of form throughout the whole year. Just as well, Shane, you were talking about Liam Rush being away. Very interesting that 1 second now.
The dog is roaring.
I'd say cut me off for a second, Shane, over there.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, I have a comment here, Detox 101. They should get Chris Crummy back too. And just while we're on the topic of Dublin, and it was brought up the other day with Niall Corcoran on the Monday show, which you can check out, and Tommy Guilfoyle from Clare, he was on the show as well. It just occurred to me that, like, in terms of trying to develop Dublin hurling, one of the big challenges also, especially now since the split season has come in, is the huge number of games that dual clubs have, and dual players in particular in that. And this is something that I've seen up close and personal trying to manage a team. But between like March and June, the end of March, there's like, if you're a dual player, there's 26 games. So you just wonder, and there's like a period of 6 or 7 weeks there around May and June, April, May, June, somewhere in there, where the players were basically playing games every 3 days for about 6 weeks. And you just wonder how much opportunities do these players get to rest, to coach, be coached at hurling, things like that. It's just non-stop all go. Michael, I was just explaining there that there's a period in terms of developing Dublin hurling, there was a period there for like in the space of about 4 months where dual players have to play 26 games, 15 football and 11 hurling. And you just wonder how much opportunity players have to be coached, to rest and relax in between games, to have that appetite. Like, it's going to take so much out of you. And like, if you're a dual club, and I was just pointing out that with Whitehall, you've so many dual players, like, it's very difficult to get an opportunity to sort of really kind of, like, you consider other clubs down the country, all year they're just training hurling only. But if you're in a dual club in Dublin where football is the dominant, let's call a spade, and there's 16 football games to put in there as well. And there's a month till the championship in Dublin, but there's another 4 league games in football. So it's very difficult for hurlers in Dublin to really get that opportunity to really develop if you're in a dual situation.
Yeah, you're just kind of playing games and surviving and trying to stay fit, aren't you, really? You're not. It's very difficult to, as you said there, it's going to be very difficult to get any level of coaching into lads. You're going to be doing probably a lot of walkthroughs, I would say, as well, with lads who have played a game a couple of days ago and who'll probably have another game next weekend. So yeah, that's a very, very difficult one. Just something I wanted to say as well, talking about Liam Rush and various Dublin players been away. The mass invasion of Cork players in the US this summer is something else. I went down through the transfer list yesterday and the amount of names, Cork names, that came back. I'll just fly through them really, really quickly. Thought it was interesting. Seamus Harnedy is heading over to Tipperary, San Francisco. The Callan brothers, Damien O'Connor will be there. Brian Hayes will be there. Jack O'Connor. Father Tom Burks in Boston. Ciaran Joyce, Niall O'Leary, Ger Mellerick, Shane Barrick, Porrick Power, Sean Toomey. And then Darrell Leary, Owen Roach, Brian Roach, Sam Quirk, Kevin Moynihan, Tommy O'Connell is in New York with Sean O'Leary Hayes. And them boys are going to have a good time, Ciaran. Them Cork boys over in America for the summer.
Without a doubt, Michael, you're after reeling back the years. I spent a good few summers there myself back in the day. Actually, the last time I was there, the Twin Towers came down. I was there out there for that weekend. So, it was devastating at the time. But, outside of that, I would have had absolutely fantastic memories of, I suppose, different type of hurling. You haven't as much grass. The referees don't tend to blow the whistle a whole pile. So there's a bit of helter-skelter stuff out there.
Hey, come here. That's mad, and you're probably going to ask Shane. What was it like being over there around 9/11? I can't imagine what.
Do you know what? No, Michael, it was like something out of a film. It was myself and Mark Foley were out there. We were playing, I think, with Waterford, and I think Henry Shefflin and Kim McGrath were out there as well at the same time. They were playing with Galway, I think. And actually, myself and Mark, we were due to visit the Twin Towers, believe it or not, that morning. And unfortunately, our night events beforehand kept us out that bit late, and we missed it. So there's a reason for everything. But it was like literally watching one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's films at the time, because he was coming up with big blockbusters. But the one thing that struck me, as it was happening, I suppose 5 minutes later, you had an American flags coming out every window where we were staying. So it was surreal, really. And one of the guys we were staying with, actually, he was from Ballygran. And actually, an hour after it happening, he was interviewed by Sky Sports, and he was tugged out in a firefighter suit. So everybody kind of hooked in and got involved. But as I said, it was for real. You think it was the Twilight Zone or some kind of a film as it was happening.
Right. Yeah. And you must have felt very strange when you're thinking, I could easily have been in that building.
Oh, sure, Shane, that was the thoughts, the thoughts were going through the head, that to imagine that we were due to go down to visit that morning and weren't up in time and didn't make it. Thank God. And, but, I think we ended up staying an extra week after that because, the security was so tight in all the airports. So, it was surreal, really, but it's a memory that it's imprinted in the head and will be there for life.
And did you have family then scrambling to see, what's going on, and were you able to get?
Oh, we did. They were all on the phones, Shane. They were with concerns. So thankfully, we put their little minds at ease to say that we were okay. But everybody, it appeared to be everybody in New York were affected with that at the time, and worldwide. That was the, I suppose, the initial bang. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody's affected by it. Everybody had relations down there. Everybody knew someone down there, whether it was working in whatever area.
Okay. I suppose we'll reflect back on the games over the weekend, Ciaran, and Tipperary are out, Dublin are out. What was your read of the weekend, the two games?
I suppose I'd be very disrespectful if I didn't commiserate with you first. I suppose on both scores. Number one, I suppose, in losing the match, and number two, in the manner of defeat. And you know what, Shane? In a strange way, when you look at the scoreboard, as bad and all as Tipperary was, and tactically as poor as they were, it was still only 2 points. That has to be the most sickening of all. But to answer your question, look at the two games. Quarterfinals, Shane, really, I suppose they're about crossing the line and getting the result. As two games and two spectacles, I thought they were very poor. Thought the standard was very poor. For different reasons now, to be fair. I suppose the happiest team of the four, I'd say, has to be Clare, because they're the one team that are kind of progressively improving nice and quietly all the time. So from that point of view, and with Dublin, Shane, Dublin, you see, the Clare and Dublin game, you don't know what Dublin are going to come with. And Clare, their forwards are improving, Duggan's improving, O'Donnell is improving, Taylor is improving, Rogers is improving. So all Clare have to do really is to get a full bill of health, and we have a small little repeat of last year, and let's see where that's going to bring them.
But can we expect Clare to be as good? Because John Conlon, given how he seemed after the game, and different talk that he wasn't right for a while with concussion after, can he be right for a semi-final? Realistically, is Conor Cleary, even if he does appear, going to be right? So it's back to more the same problems that Lohan had in the Munster final, plus the problem he had in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. So is there a chance, Ciaran, that they could blow up again?
I don't think so, because I think they've proved this year that they're not going to blow up. I suppose last year they did blow up, an academic Munster final. There's much point taking part in an outstanding Munster final unless you can back it up. And last year they didn't back it up, but this year they have proven, they have backed it up. Conlon, from listening, he was walking around at halftime, concussion. I'd say Conlon will be right. Cleary, I don't actually know. So they have a bit of an issue defensively, because as a team, when they're on the ball, they defend beautiful and they defend very silky. But when there's a bit of a squeeze put on, and when you have to defend correctly, and I'll give an example, the Galway goal, I suppose, looking at Cathal Barr, how he defended Michael Breen, poor defending, not smart defending, and I suppose, the art in defending correctly is going to play a huge part in Clare going forward.
Michael?
Yeah, just on Clare, Ciaran, was last year they were poor in the quarter final. People would have said that they were just getting a bit of dirty diesel out of the tank. They didn't produce anything in the All-Ireland semi-final. Would you be happier now you're not happier because you're a Limerick man, but looking at it from a Clare point of view, shall we say, that, okay, the idea of maybe not performing in the quarter final and, the same thing happening as last year now, are you happy that they're maybe on a better trajectory now going into a semi-final than they were last year?
Oh, without a doubt, Michael, and I couldn't let this pass without congratulating you on fatherhood as well. Well done, and congratulations yourself.
Thanks.
Come here. Without a doubt, they're in a way better position. They're in a way better position midfield and up front. All of that kind of crop are improving all the time. The one area where Clare have to get smart really is defence. If I was a Clare hurler, or if I was Brian Lohan or Sean Tracy, I would be licking my lips waiting for this particular match to have a chance of putting the wrongs of last year right. And I actually think they're on the right road, nice and quietly under the radar.
It's funny though, they're favourites going into the All-Ireland semi-final, just like they were last year. And I don't know what it is, but they maybe seem to perform better going in as underdogs. The pressure is going to be on them now, and there's an expectation for them to deliver against Kilkenny. The one thing, and to me, Kilkenny are obviously, not even sure if they're as good as last year, but you're guaranteed that they will deliver. That's the one thing. That's the one thing about them. They will deliver.
Unless they're against Tippin in All Ireland, because we keep hammering them.
That's funny. Tipper gone out of the championship.
Come here.
We can talk about that again.
That's fairly cheap. Now after looking at last weekend's, Michael.
Come on, Ciaran.
But come here. No, but you're right, because the one thing, and I suppose it's the deep love I have for Kilkenny down through the years, irrespective of their performance, irrespective of certain players underperforming. The one thing you'll always get from Kilkenny, and they've been extremely consistent, they'll be honest and they'll empty both tanks. That's a given. But the one thing they have, and you're right, Michael, you'll be kind of looking, are they better than last year? I suppose the one thing you can say about them, their squad appears to be a lot stronger and they have a lot more options.
Can I just ask you, Ciaran, the kind of news coming out of Kilkenny camp, I think Mikey Carey's out for the season with injury. Massey Keown is under pressure for the semi-final. And there's talk of Adrian Mullen potentially making a miraculous return, even though I think he shattered his thumb against Wexford. I'm just wondering, throughout your own career, I know Johnny Pilkington played with broken fingers strapped together one time. Anytime, like back in the day, it was a little bit different. Did you play through the pain barrier many times with various injuries, hands or thumbs or legs?
You would. There's three incidents that stick out, right? I can remember we played Galway. It might have been a quarter-final or semi-final of the league, and it was down in Athenry, and we had no doctor the same day. And I suppose helmets are compulsory now. Back then they weren't, so I was a lot more comfortable not wearing a helmet. And you would kind of get immune to certain belts in the back of the head, right? But you'd know the type of a belt if there were stitches required, because it'd be slightly different. There'd be a bit more force in it. But I do remember this game. It was 10 minutes into the second half, and I was after getting the right bang into the back of the pole. A cowardly one. Anyone who hits the back of the pole is a bit of a coward.
A real Tipperary one.
Yeah. Well, it was, yeah. So 10, and we do a doctor. So I remember getting the belt. The Galway doctor came in. I went down on one knee. He banged in 4 staples into the back of the head and gave me another. And I played away, and he gave me another 4. He gave me another 4, and the game was over. So that stays in my head. But I do remember a club game with Patrick Swell. I went up to catch the ball with my left hand. I got a belt here in the hand. I actually broke a bone in this hand. And, of course, I tried to be a Michael Flatley, the one hand all the way through. So they're the main ones. Stitches, all right, stitches, but I would never, I would have played with a broken small finger, broken nose, but you might get away with that. But other than that, Mike, you won't get away with it. Like if you pull a hamstring, there's no choice, you have to go. If you pull a groin, there's no choice, you have to go. You might get away with breaking a small finger or breaking your nose and driving on.
It's funny, I was watching the Kevin Moran documentary and he pulled his hamstring full blown in one of the All-Ireland finals and continued to play. It was absolutely bonkers. And he went back to Man United the week after with a bandage on his head and a fully blown kind of torn hamstring. There's one question in here, Ciaran, I just want to put to you. The Night Detox 101 says 96 Munster final. Didn't he wear rugby studs on Fierce Hot Day? Did he notice the pain during the game or only after? Very good. How bad was the pain during the game? And I believe the soles of your feet were in ribbons after the match.
Yeah, and I suppose I had a bit of a theory with the long steel studs at the time. And I suppose, with the forwards, if they got inside you and you lost your grip on the feet, or if they dropped the shoulder and tried to shimmy you, and if you had a kind of a slip with molded groove boots, molded studs or small studs, you'd probably take that and they get inside you. So I had this little thing of being an advantage. In the winter, they were absolutely perfect because you could stick the foot right in. But in the summer, looking back at it, was absolutely insanity. Let's call a spade a spade. But of course, the Frank Sinatra syndrome was there. He'll do it my way. So, come here. There was serious pain. Sure, I knew there was going to be serious consequences to it. But when you're in the heat of battle, that type of a match, you are aware, I suppose, it spells certain pains when you're running. When you're trying to go back after a run, you are going to feel it. But at the end of the day, it makes it all the sweeter, Mike, when the final whistle goes and you're inside and the doctors are sizing up your two soles, your feet. They were destroyed, all right,
And JJ Delaney joins us now. How are you doing, JJ?
I am good, lads. How are you getting on?
Not too bad.
Morning, JJ. You well?
I'm very good. Yourself?
Good.
We were just talking about playing through the pain barrier. Did you ever play any games, like we can remember 2012, all right, you had blood spilling everywhere, but can you remember any games where you played through any injuries or broken hands or whatever?
I broke my finger there against Dublin in the Leinster Championship. I tried to hurl on, obviously left-handed, but I had to put the hurl in the right hand, and I think when Brian seen that happening now, he gave me the curly finger then straight away. I broke my finger and lost the hurl and tried to do a step over and kick the ball out to one of the guys. And I think tried to pick up the hurl. I couldn't pick it with my left hand, so I'd pick it up with my right hand. And when he seen that, I say probably seen the most awkwardest person ever to hold the hurl in the Kenny jersey in his life. So he gave me the curly finger straight away. And at 2014 in the semi-final again, I can dislocate the top of my finger there as well, just before half time, and went over to Ty Crowley, and he took 5 or 6 times to get it back in. The kind of way, and kind of saying. He told me after the game, I didn't know at the time, but if he didn't get it back in straight away, he'd 3 or 4 more chances to get it back in. And if not, then I was gone and gone off to the hospital really more than that. So lucky enough, he was just pulling away at the fingers. I was just looking into the crowd. I could see the crowd's faces, and they were just kind of squirting like that. I said, what is he doing? The kind of way. That's the last thing I wanted to say. I just want to look away from to see what he's doing, but I'm really better off looking at Ty pulling the finger rather than the crowd's reaction, So look, you get your knocks and bruises and all that kind of stuff. And I just felt during the game, and it's funny with TJ Reid was probably young coming onto the team. We played Cork, and I think won the semi-finals or the final, and I got a belt, and TJ was running past me, and I kind of winced and kind of went half limping. And TJ ate me. Don't show pain. That's all he was saying. Even for a young guy, I still remember to this day I can show a bit of leadership, and I've nearly shamed myself trying to limp, and he was telling me, a young lad coming on the team, telling me, what are you doing? Don't show any weakness, the kind of way. So it's just goes to show his mentality as well,
Yeah.
I'd say, JJ, you probably dished out a lot more than what you got that, sir.
I used to get retaliation first, Ciaran. No more than yourself now. I don't see a halo over your head now either.
Hey, JJ, you must get a good laugh out of a lot of the time when people are comparing with, say, the manliness or hardiness of hurling and soccer. They have a picture of you with bandages and blood falling out of you, and then a picture of some soccer player diving onto the ground, which I'm sure that's been sent to you several times or appeared in various WhatsApp groups that you're in.
Yeah, it has. All right now. All I can say back to him is that I love to get their wages even for a week now. That'll do me for the year. You know the kind of way. It's the big difference when I look at my bank account and they look at their bank account. I'd say it makes them feel a lot better. You know the kind of way. But it's good. They've said to me a few times. All right now. To be fair, yeah.
Are you hurling this year?
I should have been listening that one. To be fair, so I nearly hold my hands up myself. I was due one of them down through the year. So you eventually, if it adds to that, you have to get one of them eventually. You know the kind of way. You have to get that sometime.
JJ, are you hurling this year?
I played a couple of Junior B games all right now. Yeah. Played 2 games this year. I was involved with the Kilkenny under-20, so that took up a lot of the year now. I took a break for a few weeks after. But yeah, I went back and played 2 Junior B games. So I'm barely at my level now, to be honest with you. The kind of way. And treading water, that's what I'm doing.
Are you the bear in the square?
I was out in the wing there for some reason. I was out wing forward for the last couple of days. I think the lads have a good friend with Ciaran Henderson is the manager there. Gerald obviously heard for Kilkenny, it's his son, and be good friends with him growing up, right? And he's the manager, so I think he's taking the piss on me a small bit by putting me out in the wing there, so I have to run around and follow the wing back. My day, the wing back stayed wing back, but now looking at the new game, even the junior wing backs are flying up the field, and I had to make a 60-yard run there the last few minutes of the last game, and I was going to say, Jesus Christ, give me back in full forward or something like that.
And JJ, being involved with the Kilkenny under-20s, was it similar enough, the same amount of commitment that you probably nearly gave at the Kilkenny hurlers?
It nearly was, to be fair. Yeah. Now, not what the senior panel are going through at the moment. Like, for even when I finished up, to where it is now, it's gone chalk and cheese, to be fair. And I kind of really got a good sense of that there this year, because we were involved with the under-20s. We were training Sunday morning, for argument's sake, and so you let the lads go off and watch the senior league match. But the guys that weren't training back in our day, if you weren't on the panel, you just had the day off, really, to be fair. But the lads were doing more training than anyone else, even the senior panel, that morning. So even the backroom team, you're gone early in the morning and you're not back home till that evening. It is a calling now, to be fair, at the moment. But yeah, we were kind of curtailed to probably 3 nights a week collectively, if you get me, because if you take it all to the under-20s, they're either involved in freshers championships in college, or else they're involved. We had a lot of guys involved in Kieran's college as well. Like, so. We really only got them probably 2 weeks after they got to the final, probably middle of March, and we were playing in April as well. You know the kind of way. So it was hard to balance that, to be honest with you. But they're getting hurling, especially in freshman college as well. A lot of them will be on scholarships too, because they won it last year. So you're kind of, you can't flog them either. You know the kind of way. So I think at the start of the year there was agreement with strength and conditioning lads as well, that even without the county board, 3 nights a week is enough for the under-20s, because they're pulled and dragged everywhere at college exams. Even we played the knockout championship against Wexford, and one of the guys was doing an exam Tuesday and the Wednesday. The Wednesday, we had a match at 7 o'clock. He did the exam at 1 o'clock down in Cork, and he had to travel up, do the exam, travel up, and done an exam the day before. So no matter what you think you're right, you're never going to be fully right. Then the lad can rest himself for the whole day. The stress of the exams, especially the day before and the next day, and then travelling up from Cork up to Kilkenny to get ready for a knockout championship match. You know, that kind of way. So they're probably have to look at a small bit again, to be fair, and probably have to look about the new rule that came in. I think it puts a lot of pressures on the players individually, because last year at least was black and white. Once you play for the seniors, you're gone. That's it. Fair enough. There's no problem. At the moment now, it's leaving up to each kind of management team, and the players themselves, they don't know what's going on. They're being dragged left, right, and centre, and they're probably getting questions. Like, the lads to be friends with the guys in the under-20s, and they were probably being asked, "Are you playing with us this weekend?" They didn't know, because they didn't know till the Monday morning, are they playing on the Wednesday. So it's not really fair. So I'd like the GA to go talk to a few of the players that were involved in that kind of under-20 senior thing, to see can they rectify it now, because I think they brought in the rule thinking that, yeah, it was the right thing to do, but looking back on it, I don't think a lot of thought was put into it, because the rule was so bad the year previously. But I'd be hoping the GA now will just go talk with these players and talk with their experience, because you're putting a lot of pressure on young guys as well, that 19, 20, and they want to make the senior panel. That's all they want to do. And this added pressure of, am I playing with the 20s? I'm not knowing till Monday morning. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of pressure on them as well, you know.
Well, you had a particularly difficult scenario, JJ, because if you look, she had Billy Drennan, you had Timmy Clifford, you had Garreau Dunn, you had a couple more lads as well. You're not sure 100% what you're going to have for a game. I think there's been all different road shows around the country in the last couple of weeks, I think, and the talk is that they're going to leave the decision in the county's hands about what they do, what they want to do. And like, to be fair, I don't think it's like 20 years ago. I think managers and management teams would be quite prudent and would look after players maybe a lot better than they would have had before. But it's definitely something that's been looked at. Something I wanted to ask you, JJ, if I put my two hands out here and I have 10 fingers in front of me, is that still enough for the amount of relegation finals you've played with the Fenians?
Geez, I can't even think of them. Last year was, we had intermediate against Fresher, the neighbours there last year, all right now, and that's, I don't know what it was. Someone asked me after now, I didn't even want to count them up, to be honest with you. Thinking about it, because it is kind of, it's not a kind of record that you really want to have. I'd rather have county final medals, all right, but I don't have only one Junior C county final medal with the club, and that's it. The kind of way. Whereas, I'd say probably 8 or 9 probably finals. We won probably, we lost one. Danesford put us down one year. We drew the first game, and Danesford put us down from senior down to intermediate. But we won the rest of them, all right. But you're probably saying what was happening for the rest of the season then if you won one game, that kind of way.
Hey, rank the pressure of, would say, an All-Ireland semi-final or a Leinster final with a relegation final. To me, like, I thank God, and touch wood, I hope I never have to play in one, because I think there's more pressure on a relegation match because the consequences of it, and even in your local parish, the consequences of you being involved in a team that's going down. How would you compare that with, playing the provincial final maybe for Kilkenny? What's pressure-wise?
Yeah, I think the relegation final is definitely a lot more at stake, really, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? If you win it, it's a brilliant end to the season, and there's that night in the pub there, everyone's going to win the county final next year. We're going to put the shoulder to the wheel. We're going to do this, and this, because it's just the euphoria of winning that last game, and it is a lot of pressure, to be fair. Definitely, I'd say relegation final 100%, because you're not only representing what team you're on at the particular time, you're very conscious of letting down the lads who got you up senior, for argument's sake, because we were senior there for could be 30 or 40 years, and like said, Nicky Orr, my father was on it, say Gerard Henderson, Pat Henderson, Pat Delaney, Billy Fitz, all these guys wore the jersey before, were pride, and won county finals too, and you're very, very conscious going into the game, more than any other games, league games or championship games. You're saying, right, we're just going out to win it for ourselves, really, more than that. But I remember one year before relegation final to roll in all the legends of the club there as well, and you're kind of saying, fuck me, we just can't let these guys down, you know what I mean? I can never look them in the face again, the kind of way. So it's kind of pride of parish, really, more than that comes in, and you're probably asking yourself, why can't we do that every game? But you can't tap into that. It's just behind your backs around the wall, and you know that what's in front of you and what you have to do, and you just have to do it for your family, and the lads in the shop that you walk into, they just live and breathe it. Especially we have a small parish, the kind of way, and very, very proud parish as well. So you couldn't even fathom coming down, but then again, we happened as we went senior to intermediate, and look, you get on in a couple of months after you're sore, right? But then the new club championship kicks off, and you're in whatever group you're in, and then you're looking forward to that again, the kind of way. So at the time, you think it's life and death, but you look again in sport, it's not life and death, but it is serious at the time. But the relief you get and the celebrations after, we never got a county final in Johnson in regard to celebration, but I'd say if they're at like the relegation finals, we'd enjoy ourselves, so we would, But great when you win them, obviously.
JJ, Ciaran was talking earlier about being over in the States and hurling or whatever. I've heard this up and down, and it's reached legendary status, and I recited, but I'm not 100% sure if it's true. For the record, the story goes that X team over in America had one transfer left or whatever, and they were going to bring you out, and Y team in America, who had no transfers left, basically decided, if we look after Mr. Delaney, we can keep him at home, and he won't be coming over and playing for the other team. Can you talk me through that story? Yeah,
sure. I was in college at the time down in WIT, and I got a call maybe on Tuesday morning. So would you be interested in calling over and playing the game? I'd love to. I never got an opportunity before, never was asked before, to be honest with you. So perfect, no problem at all. I'll go over there, right, So team called me up and said, no problem, I'll do that. And then I got a phone call the next morning, the team that they were playing that weekend, saying, why are you going over to them? I said, sure, why wouldn't I? They asked me, sure, I just want to go over for the weekend and experience the hurling over there as well. And he said, well, a lot of things could happen, you know, before you go over there. You could be stopped at immigration now. You could be, a lot of things could be happening. I said, right, okay, what's going on here? So I said, will you come on and play for us? I said, look, I'd love to, but I can't because I'm after seeing I'm going to play with the other team, so I was going to leave there. That was kind of, again, he thrown a few little kind of jives and two little small little threats in there as well. So I said, right, and we feel the conversation was gone. Phone call rang there probably 4 or 5 hours after. Said, I recognise the number again. I said, what's this like going to threaten me now? You know, that kind of way. So he rang me up and I was chatting to him and he said, look, yeah, come back and thinking about that now again. She said, look, you might get through immigration. I said, all right, okay, if they're telling me this already, but look, I'm going to take the chance. What if I gave you the same money now to go over? I didn't tell him the money at the time, so I kind of jumped it up a small bit, you know, kind of way to make it. Yeah, so I was in college as well. So, Jesus, like I had a great weekend at home, to be honest with you, over what came in. But I was kind of making sure. I said, right, no problem, I won't go over, but I want it straight away now. You know, the kind of way, rather than waiting for until the Friday, and then obviously I'll be too late to go out, and I'm out of pocket then as well. You know, the kind of way. So I said, right, yeah, and they were true to the word. I sent it out there as well, but I never got offered to go over again, to be honest with you. My name was blackened over there. So yeah, I'd say I fell out with it. I'd say there was years were burning over that weekend, I'd say now from the other team for they said it was going to go out and I never did. But yeah, it was the few threats that he gave me kind of worked, you know, kind of way. So I done a bit of background on him, and yeah, he said he seemed to be okay. So he said over the money anyway, so I was happy enough. The great weekend, and all the lads in the house had a great weekend in college as well.
Well, I'm not surprised you weren't asked to go out again or get an offer again, because you got a better offer basically to stay at home. So
None of the travelling and just the cushion over, and a great weekend on top of it too. So a free weekend for all the lads as well. So it was great. Good crack.
That's the job. Just briefly, Ciaran, looking ahead to the All Ireland semi-final weekend. Where do you see Limerick at the moment, and where do you see what sort of vibes are coming out at the moment? And with the 4-week gap, do you think the wheels will be, not to say that the wheels aren't firmly on the tracks, but do you think they'll be even more of a dangerous animal come All Ireland semi-final time now, given the gap that they've had to maybe regroup and get things back together?
Oh, without a doubt, Shane. I suppose the few extra weeks will suit them, and you know they're in an All Ireland semi-final, and I suppose from the start of the championship to now, I suppose as a team and what we're accustomed to seeing for the last 5 years, if you like, they're probably only going 60 to 70%. So if that in itself can be cranked up another 20%, then they'll take serious beating. But that's all if. And I suppose when you look at Galway, I think Henry, since he went to Galway, I think he probably has them at their best now. And I think Galway are absolutely primed for this particular match. And I think also watch them against Tipperary, irrespective, you know, Tipperary hurling off the cuff and falling into the trap. I think Galway probably set up against Tipperary as a little kind of warm-up for what they'll probably do when they face Limerick. So Limerick and Galway has the potential of being a serious battle, physical battle. Because Galway, to be fair, they're the one team that you would have picked during the last 5 or 6 years physically that are capable of pushing on to Limerick. So it's going to be a huge encounter. Hard to call it, Shane, being honest with you. You know, I would have called this a lot easier in the last 4 years. And I'm judging what I'm seeing this year. That's what I'm basing my facts on. And I think Galway are actually sitting pretty for a small bit of assassination unless Limerick improve. Unless Limerick improve and get back to a few little players. Like, you know, if Keane Lynch is back and can come to the party fully, which is going to be a huge ask. It's going to be a massive ask. You know, it isn't like turning on the switch or turning on the tap. He'll have to ease his way into. So there's a lot of factors to Chen, a lot of factors, Mike.
Yeah, just on that, JJ, you obviously know Henry very well from hurling with him all his career, all your own career as well. Have you seen anything different in Galway? Like, realistically, Galway probably should have won the Leinster final, bar a moment of madness at the end.
Yeah.
Missed a lot of chances the other night, but were by far the better team. They've been really, really competitive with Limerick in championship. Well, going back to 18, 20 and even 22 as well. Do you think they're primed for, you know, a really big show in All Ireland semi-final?
I think you have to bring it really more than because you don't, because Limerick are going to blow them out of the water. I think they've shown serious kind of strides. I was very interested. I was apprehensive now for Henry going into that Tipperary match because I thought Tip might bring it. I didn't know what reaction Galway had after the Leinster final defeat, because something like that now you can feel very sorry for yourself. We were robbed. We shouldn't have went in. We should have cleared the ball. All ifs and buts, but it's gone to our bet. I'd say they parked that very, very quickly and they moved on, which probably Henry would be looking towards. He was very positive after the Leinster final, actually, to be fair to him, but he was looking forward to this game against Tipperary. But they were very confident what they'd done. They knew what to do against Tip. They couldn't concede goals. They were well on top in the full back line there as well. They got Cottle Mannion on a load of space, and Cottle Mannion just pulled the strings. He was absolutely brilliant on the day, and how Tipperary didn't lay a glove on him at all. He was just orchestrating everything. They were bypassing Tipperary's half back line as well, and they were pinging a lovely ball into Conor Whelan, Kevin Cooney as well. He's a big asset for him, big find for him this year as well. I think he's taken a bit of pressure off Conor Whelan as well, because he has the strength to win his own ball. Even the last 10 minutes in the Leinster final, he had Tommy Welsh in a lot of bother. Hugh Lawler went over on him, and he actually got a block down on him. Kevin got a shot away, but he got a block on him. And then if that had went over the bar, Kenny Buckley's goal, it wouldn't have been a draw, would have made no difference then, the kind of way. So he's been a big file. I think that's why Conor Whelan is coming to the party a bit more. Last couple of years, Conor Whelan had to fight 2 or 3 defenders, win the ball himself, and take on the whole full back line, whoever he's playing. But now Kevin's physical presence up there, left-handed hurlers are the same as Conor. He can win his own ball. He can show for the ball as well. So it gives the opposition full back line a bit more headache, so you're not kind of just focused on Conor Whelan himself. But yeah, I think, look, Henry, being realistic, as other any intercounty manager is, you're going to have to beat Limerick along the way to win the All-Ireland final. It makes a difference if you play in the semi-final or an All-Ireland final. You have that in your head. You have to beat them. So he'll have a plan in place. He's probably thinking about Limerick since last year's semi-final, to be honest with you. They can see what they did well last year. And I agree with you on, Limerick are not at the peak of what they were last year. But in saying that, I'll double down that. So they're a dangerous thing. They're still playing not to their best of their ability, but they're still winning. And if they can, that 10-15%, I think everyone else is at their level at the moment, but they go up 10-15%. I don't think any other team can live with them, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? So it'll be a lot to say if Limerick come back. I'd love to see if Ciaran Lynch is back right again. I'd love to see him throw him in Peter Casey's kind of role, 15, and give the opposition a bit more of a headache. If at 11, you can probably plan for him, to be fair. But at 15, bring him out the field. You have Gillane and Flanagan inside, and he'd be on the corner back. There wouldn't be comfort marking Ciaran Lynch, and Ciaran would bring him out into spaces there where he wouldn't be. I think that could be a good option for John going forward if Ciaran is right too, because I think the half Hurling were very good the last day as well, to be fair. So you couldn't really argue with the fact that they'd have to start as well, to be fair, So I think Henry will have a lot of headaches to do. He has to get his matchups 100% right. I thought he will have to dominate in the half back in there as well. So he will have a plan in place. I think Ciaran's right. What the kind of position set up that they did against Tipperary, you always have to kind of use that before the game, before you go and perfect it, if you get me. So they'll have to perfect it against Limerick if they're going to beat them. But again, physically, they'll stand up to him. It's just that they can't miss the chances that they missed against Tipperary. They left Tipperary in that game. When John McGrath got that goal, I thought, right, geez, it's going to be a Leinster final job again. And they could have been terrible with that brush there as well. But they've seen it out, but they shouldn't have been in that situation. So again, with Henry, it's a good stick to beat him with, that we have to finish them chances. But with Galway going back to him, Brian Concannon came on in Leinster final. He hurled well. He started the quarter final. He was poor. Conor Cooney started Leinster final, was poor, came on, done well. So just again, the 6 forward will have to be consistent against Limerick, because if they don't, you can't give Limerick a platform in their halfback or their full back, because they're too good on the ball itself,
And JJ, if you just, sorry for one second, if you look at the Tipperary game, right? No, I thought as a game it was extremely poor. And I can only pick 2 players. Now, Tipperary to me actually fell into the Galway trap. It suited Galway perfect. And it was off the cuff hurling in from Tipperary. What I mean by that is there was only 2 players, the goalkeeper, Shelley, and Ronan Maher were the only 2 players that I actually picked out that had the ability on the day to hit any type of a 60-40 ball to the forward. Other than that, it was all kind of just get it out of the way in the air. Like Limerick don't do that and will never do that. Like if Tipper to have any chance, they had to go through the lines at pace. So either way, Limerick will stick to that game plan that Tipperary didn't implement last week. But so it's a mouth-watering clash, yeah. And I agree with you. All the forwards in Galway have improved a ton. And I suppose another talking point presently here in Limerick, Declan Hannon is out. So the big talking point is who is going to get 6? Who is going to go in there and take authority and take command, similar to what Declan Hannon did. So that's another talking point for Limerick as well.
Yeah, there's talks of a few different lads having played, a few forwards potentially having played centre-back in recent practice games. So it'll be interesting to see whether that's the case or whether it's just Colin Coughlin coming in wing-back and maybe Dan Morrissey going centre-back. That will definitely be very, very interesting to see. JJ, just on Kilkenny, how have you made, what have you made of things under Derek? Have you seen many obvious changes between Brian's regime and Derek's regime?
I don't think they've seen obvious changes, but why would he change it? You know, the kind of way they got to a couple of ball against Limerick last year in the All-Ireland final, so he wasn't falling into a bad team, to be fair, either. But what he is doing, he's trying to mix the young guys from the under-20 panel last year that he knows very, very well, to be fair, as well, with the experienced guys. Again, Kenny Buckley, you're happy with him with the goal, but take the goal out, but he came on and he managed the last 10-15 minutes of the game very, very well. He caught a lot of the ball as well in the half-back line and drove forward. Connor Fogarty is still in midfield there as well, and Pádraig Walsh came on and got a great point as well. So he's sticking to his experienced guys, which he should do, to be fair, because there's no point in throwing the younger guys in there and sink or swim when you have the likes of Killian Buckley, Pádraig and Connor Fogarty there at your disposal. Walter as well came on, they got 1-2 or 1-3, and he had a fantastic game. And even the goal when he got away from Fintan Burke, I didn't think he'd have the legs, to be fair to him, but the gap was just widening. It was another 10 minutes. It was going to be further again, but he took the ball very well and done the same thing in the second half down the line as well. So changes. What changes I have seen now is Mikey Butler's goal. I don't think you would have seen that under Brian, to be fair. So
would he be told to
go back?
When he got the midfield, when he got the first hand pass, get back, or like your man. You know, the kind of way he wouldn't be going up for the goal. But these subtle differences like that, you would see it, because Derek did play that kind of pattern of play with the 20s last year as well. And that's where he wants to get to. But I don't think he's quite there yet. But again, he's having the mix of. But then when you have the likes of TJ in full forward line, Owen Cody in the full forward line, the likes of Mossy Keoghan, Billy Ryan are good in the air. Why wouldn't you get the quick fast ball in there? And I think that's what they have to do against Clare now in the semi-final as well, because there, if you look back on double match, Crummy and Danny Sutcliffe in particular won a lot of ball in the air when they got quick high ball into him. Now, they didn't score. Danny missed 3 chances on his right hand side, which is very unlike him. But Crummy won a lot of ball there as well. So he's, I think, if they can focus on that, and if Conor Cleary is not back, which it must be a huge doubt that he's not back, he is a focal point within that. It's funny enough, as a fullback, when you're playing, you don't seem to be doing that as much. But when you're not playing, you see how good he actually is in that position. He holds the two of them together, the two cornerbacks together. I noticed the last couple of games when he wasn't there, they looked exposed against Limerick. They looked very exposed against Dublin, but Dublin didn't take their opportunities. So if they can pinpoint the two cornerbacks, I think the crossfield ball that Dublin played in, they got a lot of joy out of. So I'd say Derek will be looking at that, saying, to apply here now, if Owen Cody got that ball that Crummy got or Danny Sutcliffe got, he'll turn the corner back and go straight for the goal. You know what I mean? Where there was opportunities for Dublin there. So I think they will do that. Colin, again, is a huge question mark over him. Will he be back or not? You've seen the loss he was last year as well. So, yeah, Kenny will be looking good. I think they need everyone back. Adrian Mullins seeing he's back holding the hurl as well, which will be a huge positive. I think they need him back. They need Richie Reid back. They need everyone there. They need a full panel. They were tested now in the Leinster final. The two lads, Mikey Carey and Richie, were gone before the game, and then you had the likes of Wally coming in there as well. So Billy Drennan come on, got a pointer as well. So he has plenty of options on the bench now. They have got game experience too. So, but I think we need the full panel back now for semi-final on. You can't afford to miss anyone.
Would you think, JJ? Sorry, Michael. I fancy Kilkenny to get to the final last year. I didn't fancy him to cross the line. I actually think if they get to the final this year, irrespective of who goes there, they'll take some beating because of the strength of their panel, and they're after, like, Hugh Lawler is gone up another few notches. Lanchfield is in the makings of another Dermot Burns, a great bit of stuff. So, and every player that you mentioned there, their panel appear to be stronger. And as you know yourself, JJ, when you come in first time as a manager and you go through the players, you're going to get a few notches. Walter looked like a new man that's kind of reinvented himself as well. So signs are looking very good for Kilkenny. If they can come with a clean bill of health with a full squad, it could take a fair bit of stopping.
Yeah. It's funny, Raymond Gilbourne just asked that question. He says, which of the 4 remaining teams is the healthiest? Outside of David Burke being out, I don't think Galway really have an injury, whereas Limerick are already missing Sean Finn, Declan Hannon, Keane's obviously not fully fit. Mullen is not going to be fully fit even if he plays. Mikey Carey is out. Massey Keown mightn't be fit. Then from a Clare point of view, there's a possibility they could be missing their fullback, their centre back, and their wing back. So it helps when all your players are fit. PWL74 just says, how will Clare full back line deal with TJ and Cody? And this was something I put to you, JJ. The game has changed. There's no doubt it has changed. But if you were looking at Galway and Tip the other night, and you're saying Tip cannot win primary ball, like while the game has changed, the idea of winning a high ball is still as important as ever. I put that to you firstly. Is that skill still as important as ever? And in your own playing career, you would have been one of the best, most proficient players in the air. Is there anything in particular you did to develop that or work on it?
It was probably just kind of routine, even just poking around before training. It was just going through your routine of having your hurl up in the air and jumping, getting off the ground. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do is get off the ground, because attack the ball at its highest. See a lot of people that don't catch the ball, they're just waiting for it to fall down. You're waiting for you're bringing a lot of variables into it that shouldn't really be there. You can take them out of it by getting into the sky and attacking at the highest point, because if your opponent is waiting for it and you jump up there, you have a huge advantage there as well. Like, but
just on that, JJ, is it all about that's all to do with timing as well? That's you judging when to be up and when the ball is at, because a lot I've even in matches myself, it's not worse than when you get caught under the ball. You're a sitting duck. You're done. Yeah. So it's all about timing it and attacking it at that highest point.
It is. You're not worse when you're caught in the back foot. When you're back in one and he's gone, and you know what I mean. You're not going to make it up. You're either going to pull and give away a free, or you're jumping and he's gone around you by the time you're on the ground again. You know the kind of way. So it is. But that's when I go back to when you're poking around before training. Like, don't be just waiting for the ball to come in and go into your hand. Get up off the ground and go attack it as if someone is there beside you. You're not going to. And it is about timing, and even with forwards, I'm playing with the forwards now as well. So it's completely different kind of variable. It's that I'm trying to let the forward or the back out in front of me so I can go and play his hurl again, going from behind me again.
You hardly played hurl, yeah.
No. It's just giving away secrets here now.
Ciaran, would you be like the high ball? While hurling has changed, the high ball is still crucial. And even this year, I think we've kind of seen even that high ball into the edge of the square has come back at different stages, and it's been maybe utilised a bit more maybe than in recent years.
Yeah, it is.
Even though the game has changed, Michael, I suppose the art in defending hasn't changed. And the bottom line is, unless you need to attack the ball, whether that's coming in low or high, if you want to get the ball. And, if it's in a 50-50 situation, as JJ said, and JJ is slightly unique now, because he's probably the one guy that I'd say if 3 high balls went in, he'd definitely catch 2, if not 3. But I suppose the modern defenders, as JJ said, for the 50-50 ball, they're just putting the hand up. So that is very dangerous, because it's a breaking ball and it could break anywhere. Like, I don't mind a defender challenging for a high ball, but he must come down with it. And it won't fall into your hands. So you have to get off the ground and you have to attack it. And I suppose there's a lot of defending going on presently at the moment. And there's a lot of goals being leaked from going up trying to catch the ball, and they're not catching it cleanly. So that's a serious act, Michael, because there's not too many defenders out there that actually can perfect that skill as JJ did. Because, if a fullback is going up to catch the ball, I have no issue with that, but you must come down with the ball in your hand.
Yeah, just a question here for you, JJ. High ball into the full back line is different to high ball in a half back line from a defensive point of view. Like, they're two different beasts, aren't they?
Yeah. When you're set, when you're in the half back line, it's easier in the high ball, especially, look, back in my day, the puck out was always into the half forward line anyway. So you're setting yourself, you're comfortable on the 45-yard line, probably certainly send 10 yards forward or 10 yards back. That's where the ball is going to be landing. In the full back line, it's completely different dynamic. Reason being that if you're in the full back and the high ball comes in, it's usually from general play. So the attacker is not right beside you. He could be moving left and right. So you don't know which way what face to stand on. If you stand on his right hand side, it could go into the left corner, and you're giving them a bit of space to poke it in. So it's a lot more quick, and you have to react a lot more in the full back line for a high ball coming in. If a big high looping ball is the one you want as a full back, because you can actually set your feet, and the opposition guy has to come in beside you, because he can't stand away from you, because everyone is looking at where the ball is going to drop. So if he's not there beside you, he's showing a bit of weakness there by not going in. So the high looping ball is fine. The one that's kind of head high, that's going traveling at speed, or even from the right half back into left corner, they're the hardest one, because you'll end up, if you're going to commit to the ball and defenders in front of you, or the attackers in front of you, if you go too hard, you'll push the defender or the attacker in the back, and you go away free there as well. But with the high looping ball in on top of the edge of square, edge of the 14, I think that's the one that full back who's come from under the high ball, that's the one he wants. He doesn't want the one that he's moving and jumping in as well, because it's like Ciaran said, if you're moving and jumping, you miss the ball, you're on the ground, the man gets it, it's in the goal, and that's it, you know what I mean? But going back to the game changing, if you have guys to win the ball in the air, TJ Reid, Owen Cody, Aaron Gallan, get the ball into him as quickly, one-on-one, out in front, because a lot of full back line want to go out in front, they think the ball is going to go that way. That's why Aaron Gallan gets so many goals. He goes out in front, and that's why the ball in from the Limerick midfielders, Darragh Dunn especially, looks up to see if the defender's in front of Aaron Gallan, he'll just pop it over high, and Gallan is so good in the air, he catch it over you and bang it. And nothing worse than the defender, when the attacker catches the ball over you, you're looking around and the ball's in the back of the net. It's just heartbreaking. No matter what you could win the next 5 balls, that's the one you're going to be thinking about after the game. It's just a killer for a corner.
JJ, if you were on TJ or Aaron Gallan tomorrow morning, you know, and I know the first few high balls that would come in, you'd hardly be going up trying to catch the ball at them.
Try you back yourself, Anna. You know the kind of way. If you did, it's
I suppose where I'm coming from here, I suppose TJ especially, you know, it would be very strong on a high ball.
Yeah.
So myself personally, I would be playing the ball. So all I do would be go up in front and tip it, right? And if I did 1 or 2 of those, then I might try the third one, see how it would go. But my point here is I wouldn't give him any slight advantage in winning the first ball or the second ball. Whatever happens, it wouldn't go through. At worst to drop, and at best to go forward.
Yeah. But if you did, if you did win the ball off him and caught it off him, it's a huge psychological win for you, for I'm saying.
Of course, that's the point, yeah.
It's whoever wins it, that's the key. You have to.
It is, that's the one, the first ball.
Yeah. So,
Ciaran, I might just throw one at you because I know you have to go. POL or Detox 101 says, can you ask Ciaran, what does success look like for Limerick long term? Is it X number of All Irelands won, or is it consistently been in the semi-final, or bringing through X number of young fellas? I suppose that's, you know, is this a generational team that's going to win All Irelands for Limerick and you're going to disappear off the radar, or, you know, are you consistently going to be All Ireland contenders? Well, that's what he's asking.
Yeah, I think, Shane, actually for the last 2 years, they're actually they're in the middle of developing all the time with the new players that are coming in, and Adam English and Colin Coughlin. Like, the development underage structure in Limerick is pretty strong, Mike, and, you know, it isn't slowing up. And if they're not successful at the minor 17s or 20s and not progressing, winning All Ireland and Munster Championships, I wouldn't be that concerned with that, provided the conveyor belt is moving and you're plucking out 2 or 3 nearly every second or third year. And that's what appears to be happening here at the moment. You know, so success for Limerick at the moment, really, Mike, in my own opinion, is being a serious force, I suppose, staying consistent and being in the shake-up every year, there or thereabouts. I suppose emulating what Kilkenny did for years. Limerick are now have put themselves in that position. Now the big one here is to stay consistent and to keep it going. And as I said, all the structures are presently in place for that kind of process to work, for want of a better word.
But the knock-on effect of that then as well is the Limerick, the young kids looking at this Limerick team saying, this is absolutely phenomenal. I can see where I can go in the future. And as Ciaran said, it's a structure's in place, and the kids have an appetite of going out after every Limerick game, poking the ball in the wall, or down to the field the next day saying, I want to be next Keane Lynch, or Garrod Hegarty, or Aaron Gallan. It's a huge thing to have it within your own county. You'd always admire other counties, but once you have it in your own county and you see the lads walking down the street, say, Jesus, I want to be like that. You know the kind of way. And once the structure is there, and Ciaran said the structure is there, the appetite of you can't beat your own county winning, get the young lads involved there again. I suppose Limerick is probably, you'd be pulled from a few sports, but I say the hurling now probably must be first and foremost in a lot of kids' minds, saying that I've seen Limerick winning for the last few years and I want to be a part of that in the future as well. So if you can maintain over the last few years, you'll see them young lads coming through there again, and it's going to improve the whole county as a whole. It can't, but not.
And JJ, even driving through the city there, I've been to the city a lot every day, you know, where there wouldn't be pockets of hurling. No matter what day you went around the city, even the so-called tough areas of the city, they're out with hurling. They're out with hurling. You know what I mean? So it's massive, absolutely massive around South Hill, Moyross, any of these places. You've young gossoons and young girls left and on the right and in patches of green with the hurling. So that'll tell you the effect that it has inside there.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
That's the job. Ciaran, I let you go. Thanks very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Great talking to you. JJ, great to see you. Mind yourself, man.
See you, Ciaran. Mind yourself. Chat to you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye.
JJ, I'll let you go in 1 second. I'm wondering, like, are you shaking in your boots somewhat in Kilkenny, thinking that the Limerick boys are gonna, you know, you were last to do 4 in a row or whatever? Are you thinking that they're gonna potentially take your mantle? All the talk is, you know, comparisons between your great team and potentially this Limerick team. Are you worried in any way? And like, it's maybe difficult for you to make comparisons, but how would you compare the two?
I don't worry about that whatsoever. I just can appreciate what you're seeing week in, week out, and look, again, you'd admire them because you know what you have to do to stay up on top or being competitive at that top level, because a lot of teams now, when you win one All Ireland, it's very, very hard to back it up, because you think what you do the year previously is enough the following year, but you have to do more, and the following year more again. And the level of consistency they're after, even John Kiley, the stats for the finals he's after playing is absolutely scary. But it's just a generational team with leaders all over the field. Many hundred years are involved in that, starting 15 now at the moment as well, and it'll be a few more before that team finishes as well. Yeah. So it just goes to show what kind of balance they are. They're not relying on one player, which we weren't either. We were always kind of introducing players as we went on, and that keeps the whole panel competitive as well. And it's no, I wouldn't worry or compare any two different generations are completely different. The training they're doing at the moment, we never did, or I don't know if would we do it, you know, that kind of way. But it was just we had our purple patch at the time. We enjoyed it with a few leaders, and we were very lucky. The few lads came at the one time, and with the manager as well. It was a perfect start for Kenny at that particular time. But even since that, the lads that drove it on since, even the lads we've spoken previously, they're setting standards now for the new Kenny lads coming through, like, you know. So again, the Kenny jersey will always go ahead. So no, I don't really get into the comparison side of things. I just appreciate what I've seen in front of me week in, week out, and they're so consistent. And I like to see, can we pick holes in this Limerick team?
Yeah,
it's very, very hard to find it, you know, the kind of way to see how would you kind of go about beating them if you were going to play them. But say that's just pie in the sky talk, kind of pub talk, really more than that. That's what it is, you know. Yeah. But it's just no. It's just appreciate what kind of levels they're reaching at the moment. And again, probably looking at the flip side of it is who is going to be the Tipperary of that bit us in 2010, for argument's sake. Who's that team going to stand up to this Limerick team? Will it be Kilkenny? Will it be Galway? Or will it be Clare this year? And there's only 3 teams left that's able to do it, you know. So come the weekend, it's only be one team left if Galway don't get over the line. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to see who's the team that's going to be. You're going to be bet. That's the heel of the 100. Definitely going to happen. But when is it going to happen to this Limerick team? That's what they're trying to keep that away from. I'd say that's their narrative as well within the dressing room themselves this year. They're being pinned to the collar with injuries. They're saying that people are kind of saying they're not playing as good as what they were. Could they use that as motivation, saying people are writing us off? They probably did. Probably are within internally. You need just a small percentage, you know, that kind of way in regarding get yourself psyched up. Collectively, they will be driving on, but when you're away from the group, you always need that 1 or 2% yourself that you need. Something is getting at you, something that's said about you, or something that you need a small bit extra motivation personally yourself, because as I said, you can bluff anyone, but you can bluff your manager, bluff your teammates, but you can't bluff yourself. So if you're not fully focused, and I think you need that small thing to keep you focused, and something like they're not going as well as what they are. They won't win it without Hannon. They won't win it without Sean Finn. When you're starting 15, saying, right, fuck that, now I'm going to show what we can do as well. So maybe that will stand to them come the year out. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to see who the team will be, stand up to them eventually, you know, that kind of way. So
it's funny you say about picking holes. Back in the day with your team in Offaly, the what was always said was yeah, like we have to turn their half back line. We have to make them run back towards the goal. And the other one was, and this is kind of ridiculous. It was like they can't stay going forever. That was the other one. But just the last one I put to you. Were you happy when you stepped away at the end of 14? And it's a two-pronged question. It's always said that I know David Herity had a very short conversation with Cody, and Jackie had a very short conversation with Cody. It's always said anyway that you were one of the only ones, if not the only one, that he actually asked to stay on, and he wasn't happy to see go. Is there any truth to that?
No, fairness to him. I rang him coming down in the car. Now, we had a good conversation, I'll be honest with you straight out. We did have a good conversation, but he said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm 100%. I wouldn't have been, I made my mind up straight away. I know for a fact I wasn't going to ring you to make you change your mind, or that wasn't going to happen." He said, "Look, I'm not going to ask you back because you have your mind made up." That's what he said. There's no way in saying, "Will you come back for another year?" The way he was thinking is, mind is made up. There's no point in having someone on the panel that is not 100% committed, and that's why he didn't go back, to be honest with you, because I could have went back, to be honest with you. Even I would have bluffed myself again, going bluffing Brian and bluffing the teammates, going back for another year for the sake of doing it. But I had the decision made probably Christmas 2013, because we went away to Australia with Aisling at that time, and she was living in Miami. She was living in Miami for the year, so we went to Australia first, and we went over to Miami. So I came home on the end of January. I missed probably 3 or 4 weeks training at the start of pre-season there as well. And Ashley said over there, so I said to myself, just give it this year, give it me all. I wasn't happy the way 2013 went, but I just wanted to throw everything at it. And I was kind of saying to myself, every game I played that year was kind of saying, right, if it finished today, I'd be happy. If it wasn't on the team, I wouldn't have been happy, but I would have accepted the decision, because I knew I got myself in the best shape possible I could have got. If I went back to 2015, then I would have been lying to myself. I wouldn't have done what I'd done in 2014. Could have been a hindrance to the panel then myself as well. You know what I mean? So they might have went down and won it then. You know what I mean? I know you're kind of saying they went down and won, you would have got another medal, but if you can just turn up in the All-Ireland final day and pick up your medal, I would have done that. You know, the kind of way without doing all the training. But unfortunately, you have to go through the hard slog. And mentally, I was just done with the whole thing, to be honest with you. I didn't no interest in going back. I was happy enough. And I'd say it's one of the reasons I finished up in 2014 is I can still hurl a bit of junior B at the moment, because the body's okay. I was lucky enough, didn't break down too much, a few kind of breaks here and there, but soft tissue injuries has been fine. The hips have been okay. The knees, a bit of trouble with the knees, but they're still holding on. So look, I'm back in it. Could have been back in 2015, but I could have been finished hurling 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm still kind of tipping away at it. So look, when are you happy? You know, the kind of way. So I was very, very happy with especially the way I finished, to be honest with you. I didn't know in my wildest dreams, I didn't think we're going to win it and finish up in All-Star and that kind of stuff. That was just the icing on the cake. But I was just had myself in good condition, and so if it got to start, I would have done myself justice. And I didn't think I did that in 2013. So mentally, myself, peace of mind, I was just happy with the way it went. And if I went back, I would have bluffed everyone in going back, and I wouldn't have done the same amount of training that year as the year previously. And when you get older, you have to do more, for argument's sake. You know, that kind of way. So it just wasn't there. It wasn't there.
No. Brilliant. JJ, thanks a million for your time, and I enjoy the club season. I hope you have no relegation final this year with a bit of luck.
I'll be gone to America there in the middle of August, and we're moving over there, so I won't be back for it.
Oh, very good. Okay. Good man. JJ, thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thanks for talk to you soon. Great to chat to JJ Delaney there and Ciaran Carey. Just some great insights there from the two boys.
JJ's little non-trip over to America was quite something. That was a fair.
I'd heard that for years, but I never got it 100% confirmed or whatever. And in fairness, he didn't hold back any detail about it.
No. It's just very revealing chat. No, it's great stuff. So, like, we need to talk about who's going to be hurler of the year, and it's early days and all of that. And I asked Johnny Kelly actually on Tipcast about it as well, and he was like, there's big games to come, and often it is the All-Ireland semi-final and final that decided. But Aaron Gillane is probably the favourite. Tony Kelly, by dint of the hat-trick, has vaulted himself in there. Conor Whelan with won 6 against Kilkenny and then 1-4 against Tipperary. He's right in there. Like, if Limerick get beaten by Galway, there is a fair chance that Conor Whelan, irrespective of how the final goes, that he'll be hurler of the year, because he'll have to be on fire to beat Limerick, surely.
Yeah, you'd imagine so, yeah. it's funny, like it's mad to think that Galan is 9-4 favourite essentially at the moment, and he wasn't on the Limerick squad by all accounts earlier on the year, and his performances are getting better and better. You'd have to say probably had a quiet final quarter, the Munster final, but he'd most of his work done by then. Dermot Byrne's Andrew Sullivan actually was on to me there just saying that Dermot Byrne's a big price at 16s, even though he won it last year. I think he's 2 Man of the Match awards already from the Munster Championship, doesn't he? Tip and Cork, I think. Now, he was not himself in the Munster final. He definitely would be in the mix. It's not beyond. I thought Nicky Quaid was outstanding in the Munster final. Now, I thought he literally nearly had the perfect performance. He's 50s for hurler deal, like a massive, massive outsider. But as you say, if Limerick don't win, do you know who I think is a decent shout? Someone like Hugh Lawler at around 25s or something like that, who's probably better than he's ever been. And if they play Limerick in the All-Ireland final and he shuts down Galan, somewhat like what he did in last year's final, I think he'd have a fair shout. But there's a lot of big contenders there. I know Galan is favourite and Kelly's close by, but you couldn't confidently call who it's going to be. You couldn't confidently call the county it's going to be from.
No, because like it's up in the air. I mean, we have to see what teams are lined out on the day. Like you've gone through it already, some of those injury issues for Kilkenny, Mikey Butler, Mossy Keown. Will Adrian Mullen be right? How much training will he have done, even if his shattered thumb does come right? On the Limerick side, no Finn, no Declan Hannon. Will Hannon be available for the final if Limerick win that semi-final? Conor Cleary for Clare, John Conlon, David McInerney, Aidan McCarthy. And I do stick by this. I would put Aidan McCarthy back in the half-back line if John Conlon is available.
You rubbished that notion a couple of weeks ago when I suggested it.
Well, look, I stand by it now. No, but do you know what? What makes it easier to stand by it is because the Clare forward line operated so well without him.
They have a surplus of forwards. And plus, if David McInerney is fit, will he be, 100% fit? Do they need a new influx of energy back there and a bit more experience? The only problem is, I'd say, with Aidan McCarthy, and I don't know if he was taken off injured in the Munster final or he was taken off because he, maybe was out of form. But you're also putting someone back into the half-back line that outside of what we say in the Tipperary game, he hasn't had a brilliant championship so far, and he's had a few niggles as well. That would be a little bit of a worry.
Cathal Mannion actually is 20-1 as well, and after A. Sully 180 saying throw him into the mix as well if Galway beat Limerick because he'll have to be on song for Galway to win. It's true. I don't think he was fully right for the Leinster final, and he didn't overly stand out in that game. Actually, remember last year when he sort of played that bit of a sweeper role at the start of the game against Limerick, and they somehow managed to play these crossfield balls that evaded him, went into Galan, and he fired them over the bar. They were unbelievable scores, but he was sort of bypassed. So Galway pushed up after that.
Limerick will not make a hero of Cathal Mannion next weekend, and that is one thing for sure, because Tip did make a hero of him last weekend. There's no point in saying any different. And as Ciaran said, there seemed to be a lot of Tip guys that were uncomfortable with giving that ball that takes him out of it, with giving that 50-yard ball to hand to the half forward or to a midfielder. A lot of lads were just driving a 100-yard ball down on top of him. I couldn't get over what I was seeing, but honest with you, and I only got to read basically the transcript of Cattle's interview after. He was mystified by it as well, because he basically said that players were doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And that's something they'll have to iron out next year.
I like that he didn't spoof and try and act like, have, I suppose, the tone of his interview about how, we were close and on another day. It was only 2
No, he's
points.
not like that. In fairness, he's not like that at all. He basically said after the Waterford game, they were beaten by 6, was it? He said, this was an almighty hammer. We were hammered out here. He doesn't, in fairness, he definitely doesn't sugarcoat it. Unlike other managers who will talk about the amount of wides or a refereeing decision, or we had 21 shots to 5 or something like that. He talks in facts, to be fair to him. Okay,
so let's pick it now. Who's going to be your hurler of the year?
Just going to go down through here. Yeah, no, just going to go down through it here and pick one. There's a question in there from Detox 101. He says, in terms of Nicky Quaid getting hurler of the year, can I ask you as journalists, what barriers does he have to go through that other players may not to get hurler of the year and him a goalkeeper? Well, this year, he's more likely to me to get hurler of the year above any other year because he's been called into action a lot more. And that's the basic facts of a lot of people want to see the keeper making loads of saves, or been having to make loads of saves, and that maybe would say some of the reasons why, you know, James McGarry never got an All-Star back in the day, because he was never called into action. So I think the fact that he's had to do a lot more in games would definitely play into that, and it would also play into, if we were to get it, there would be less outstanding candidates out the pitch. I put it that way. And if just look at it from a Limerick point of view, Limerick are favourites to win the All-Ireland, and they only have the 4th favourite to win Hurler of the Year. So if Limerick were to win the All-Ireland, and Tom Morrissey stays playing well, and Barry Nash stays playing well, and Dermot Burns stays playing well, but Nash keeps playing at that really high level, I think he would have a fair chance of getting it, to be honest with you, even though it would take a big departure for a goalkeeper to get it.
Yeah, Aaron Gillane, actually, like, to me, I think Aaron Gillane...
Sorry, Gillane. Yeah, Gillane, of course, is the favourite, yeah.
Yeah, he is the favourite. I'd probably put him down for, like, I think of all the teams left, yeah, I'd narrow it down to probably TJ Reid and Aaron Gillane getting it, because if Kilkenny, I think Kilkenny have a very good chance of winning their semi-final with the injuries to Clare. Like, will Clare put Shane Amori back in the full back line, for example, or will they put Paul Flanagan back in there? And, you know, they're very good on the ground, but against, you know, some of the best in the air, you know, there might be more hassle there. Maybe David McInerney might go back there.
Really looking forward to going through the matchups for next week. It's going to be fascinating.
But if I was to put my neck in the block, I'd say Aaron Gillane would probably win Hurler.
If you're to put your neck in the block, you go for the 9-4 favourite. Bravo. Bravo, my friend.
Right, fine. Adrian McGrath says, Tipcast, my favourite pod this week. Yeah, he was watching and he was drinking up those Tipperary tears.
I tuned into bits and pieces, but Johnny Kelly's comments on, you know, the link between the Joe McDonagh and the All-Ireland series, I thought were particularly kind of thought-provoking from someone who's obviously in that situation as Offaly manager as well.
Yeah, I must find that video, actually. If you give me a second there. If you talk a little bit of rot there for a second, let me find the video.
Like the 6 counties in the McDonagh Cup have all been canvassed by Croke Park to give feedback on whether they think that link should be severed. And listen, I think it'd be nearly unanimous, but there'd definitely be a majority agreement that the link probably needs to go. Like, to me, it would have been enough for Carlow to finish their season by winning the Joe McDonagh in Croke Park without having to tug out again. And I think it's kind of a bit
maybe be treated the same as the Tailteann Cup, that the final be played on hurling semi-final weekend. It has more counties hurling longer. Like I would feel that while Yee and Carlow got hurling into June, Laois and Kildare and Kerry were all finished in the middle of May. And that's not right. They should be hurling into the middle of June, and maybe the top 2 teams are to go on to maybe play in the McDonagh final, and then being part of the semi-final day in front of 50,000-60,000 people at Croke Park. Would that not be better in the long run?
Of course it would. Like it's too condensed. That's the first thing to say about it. Like, it's a really jam-packed. Like, it's week on week on week. Like, I mean, as I said before, Offaly won the Division 2 league final, and the week later they were playing Laois. So look, it probably needs to be extended longer over a period. So to do that, you know, that link between the Liam McCarthy, between the Joe McDonagh finalists and the Liam McCarthy teams, possibly should, you know, is there a need for it? I'm not sure. My opinion is probably not. It's no harm to play a Division 1 team, but at that stage, like, as Offaly had shown, like, after you lose, it's very hard to get the guys motivated again to go again. So from that point of view, I would say it's better. I think the league is where we need to review. Obviously, you know, the provincials, there's question marks over the provincials campaigns as well. Like, so it's not just about sorting out the Joe McDonagh and maybe extending it. I think there's a bigger picture here to be looked at. Like, in an overall scheme, has Leinster, who is basically the rest of Ireland, is that working? Maybe it is. Certainly, Munster is ultra competitive. There's also no relegation out of Munster because Kerry, you know, unless Kerry win the Joe McDonagh, that doesn't come into play. So it's as if the teams in Munster have pulled up the ladder behind them and closed shop. And it's created a really, really good competition. We're all aware of that. But no less so, like, there's an imbalance there. So I think, yes, the Joe McDonagh should be extended throughout summer. I don't know, is there a need for a link then for the Joe McDonagh? Certainly the team that loses the Joe McDonagh final, there's probably no need for them to go on and be wait for 3 weeks to play, you know, the third place team in Munster. It's just a bridge too far at the wrong time of the season. I do, however, believe that the likes of Offaly do need more games against the top teams, and the perfect vessel for that is the league. I mean, to get that right and to get the balance right there would help certainly developing counties. So it needs to be looked at, and I believe they are looking at that.
Is there a case that I think we've got to accept the league has got to be a development competition now? Because I get frustrated every year. People said the league is not competitive enough, or not. Like, what do we want another championship before the main championship? Like, do you want to turn the league into a mini Like, I don't know if that's maybe you need a league where maybe you give, you bring the Offaly's and the Carlows into it and maybe expand it. And okay, you might get the tough games against a Galway or a Clare, but you might also have an Offaly or Westmeath where maybe you can blood guys with, and I'm sure that those, no disrespect, the McDonagh teams would benefit from that as well. That we accept that the league is a developing ground for the championship for everyone.
I think so. Yes. Look, to be fair, I think that was one of the reasons that the old Division 1B and 1A went, because the top teams didn't want to be playing each other so often, and then this is how this developed. Okay, so what you have is you don't have a really competitive league at the top at the moment, because teams, they'll use the panel, the top tier teams. But then on the other side of it, Division 2, it's ultra competitive. Like, it's full on, like, straight away. Everyone wants to get out of Division 2 to get up to have a crack at the top teams. So that leads to really, really competitive games with teams that are probably on, as I say, hurling-wise, the population base isn't as great as the opposition at the top level. So yes, there's no doubt about it. Let's be honest, no one is going to do once the championship is not going to go. But do you make the league, as you said, more of a development competition? Maybe hold on to your Munster or Leinster competition, but have it maybe knockout, and then pick your top 10, top 12 teams to play Lee McCarthy. Maybe the way to go, or maybe something they could look at.
Okay, well, Johnny, look, brilliant stuff this morning. Thanks very much for joining. Sorry, Johnny Kelly was great on the show. I cut you off mid-flow there as you were chatting. I started the video by mistake, but sure, look, no harm, no foul.
There's no panic, yeah. No, I thought that that's quite revealing. I do think the league needs to be looked at. I would be going back to something like a 1A and a 1B, maybe 7 and 7, and giving some lower tier counties maybe some exposure at the higher level, like Johnny says there. It also tried to be incentivizing the league as well. Be it financially or otherwise. But great to have Alan with the sky blue background behind you and all, Alan, for the weekend that's in it.
Painted that there.
Good man, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good, very good. Dublin and Mayo, there's nothing like it, is to energise the championship.
Nah, that's for sure. It's whet the appetite. I think a lot of people have been talking about a slow build up in this championship, and there's been plenty of giving out about this and that, but I think when these draws were made last weekend, particularly Dublin Mayo, obviously Kerry Tyrone's a huge one as well, but I think certainly up here Dublin Mayo has whet the appetite for everybody, and all the talk of whatever's gone on in the championship beforehand is well gone this week.
Yeah, I hope you have a ticket, got, because I think they're fairly hard got at this stage.
Yeah, I do actually. I've had a few people ask me, but yeah, haven't seen too much about it. It's hard to get so far. I suppose the double header too will make it a bit more difficult. But look, it's huge now. Even though it's a quarter final, an All-Ireland quarter final, we're very used to over the last number of years having Mayo Dublin playing in semi-finals and finals. But there's no doubt it's a huge game for both teams, and both teams with a lot to prove as well. Obviously, Mayo for whatever reason, haven't managed to get it across the line. So they'll see this race now, having got over Galway last weekend, they'll see this as a pretty open championship race, or as open as it's been in a number of years. And I think Dublin, obviously, coming off the back of last year, getting a couple of lads back, Jack and Paul Mannion, and then obviously Stephen coming back as well. It doesn't need to be said why those boys have come back. That's to right the wrongs of last year.
Alan, over your career, did the games against Mayo fire you up as much as the ones against Kerry?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, like you just always knew what you were going to get with Mayo. You know it was going to be like, even if either team wasn't going well coming into a game or whatever, you knew it was Mayo were going to come fight fire with fire. And look, it's like it's been said before, they were the one team that always threw everything at Dublin. And like I suppose the latter stage in my career, we were probably lucky enough that we managed to win a few of them. Mayo then won a couple, but it's like it's always been a game that has thrown off fireworks, no matter what teams are on the field. Right from back, even from when I was involved in 2006, I think both teams kind of bring out the best in each other because of the style of football they want to play. And I think like if you look at them this year, particularly Dublin, and I've seen them a couple of times. I was down in Portlaoise to see them. And I was at the Sligo game in Breffni Park as well, and I think they toyed with Sligo a little bit. I think they had some goal chances in the second half, and if they really wanted to hammer home, I think there was a couple of fists over the bar. Where I think if it was next Sunday, I think the likes of Con would have been going for the jugular. So I don't think we've seen the best of either team this year, and let's hope that comes out on Sunday. I think certainly with Dublin. They've probably been holding back a little bit in some of their group games, and I'd expect to see a different Dublin this Sunday in terms of their forward play. I think kind of watching them in a couple of games, some of their play has been, a lot of it's been sideways, very patient and stuff, because they've been winning games and they haven't really had to exert themselves. But I think it'll be a different story this weekend, and we'll probably need to see a much more incisive Dublin attacking unit if they want to win this game.
And the last couple of years, Alan, like All-Ireland semi-finals lost to Mayo after extra time. And this was like, I think Dublin were 10-3 or 10-4 up at half-time and then ultimately lost after extra time. Lost last year with a last-second boomer of a free from Sean O'Shea. Like, how far away do you think Dublin are from where they used to be, and where do you kind of rank them in the pecking order here?
Yeah, I think they're well up there. Like, I think, as I said, like, it's a very difficult championship to call. And I was chatting to my son this morning, and I said to him, I'm going on to talk about the match. He said, who do you think is going to win? And I said, do you know what? I don't actually know. it's like anyone, look, I suppose as pundits or whatever we're chatting about, our job is to, people are listening, our job is to call who's going to win the game. But it is such a difficult game to call. And they've always been, like, maybe there was a period there towards after maybe 2012 where for a few years Dublin were the better side because of the personnel they had. But certainly now, like, anyone kind of looking at the run into this match and saying, Dublin are definitely going to win, or Mayo are definitely going to, like, it's impossible to call. And both teams have actually been quite inconsistent. Like, even Mayo last weekend against Galway, they very much mixed the good with the bad. Like, they showed brilliant character to come out and win the game, but like in the first half, it looked like they were going to be steamrolled by Galway. They looked like they were way off the pace, but they just have that Mayo. I think they have this attitude that they never give up, and I've seen it so often myself when I played against them. You think you're home and hose, and then they come from nowhere and they get a goal, and then the crowd gets on their back, and they have a big crowd. They have a noisy crowd who does play a part in these big games. But to come back to your question, where are Dublin at, say, compared to a few years ago? Look, there's no question, it's not the team that it was 4 or 5 years ago. There's a natural kind of involvement, or whatever you want to call it, going on. It's like the personnel isn't the same quality as was a number of years ago. But there's guys kind of starting to make their way, like Sean Buckler, my own club man. He's there a couple of years, but he's been really good this year. I think Colin Pascal has been knocking around the panel a number of years, but he's been, like, again, a couple of games this year he's played really, really well. And I think playing Mayo in an All-Ireland quarter-final out the weekend is a huge game for guys like that. Like, Colin Pascal really needs to, this is his opportunity to show that he has the quality to play at the top level. And I believe for a number of years, having played club football against him before I finished up, that he has the quality. But I think he needs to show it at the weekend. And it's not until those guys kind of take that next step that we can really compare this team with say, the great team of 4 or 5 years ago.
Just something you kind of alluded to earlier, Alan. Is this kind of a last chance saloon for, Cluxton coming back, James McCarthy staying on, Jack coming back, Paul Mannion coming back, even Pat Gilroy been back involved, even Kevin McMenamin's involved? Like, this is literally all the old faces are here. Like, do you see it as a bit of a last chance saloon to win All Ireland, like for a couple of years, shall we say?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this like the way Dublin are set up at the moment, with the personnel coming through, the way Desi has blood of talent and stuff, I think he's trying to get that little conveyor belt going again. There's always a couple of guys coming through each year. So I think Dublin, like, I don't think we'll ever go back to the stage where we were maybe kind of early 2000s or whatever, where we were winning Leinster championships. That was deemed a success, and we were struggling to get over quarterfinals and semi-finals. I think this Dublin team for the next number of years, while they won't win every All-Ireland, they'll certainly be competing at the business end of the season. But I think, and like I said at the start, I don't think it needs to be said, when you look at the way Desi went about his business in the off-season there, whatever happened, obviously the lads went hard after Jack to come back, went hard after Paul Mannion to come back. Like, Paul Mannion said at one stage he was never going to go back, he'd had enough of it, and then like something changed his mind. Like, what was it to change his mind? I don't know. I haven't asked him about it, and maybe someday we will get to ask him about it, but something changed his mind. Something changed Stephen Cluxon's mind. Obviously, whatever happened between Desi and Stephen Cluxon, like, again, I haven't asked Stephen about that. I wouldn't ask Stephen about it, but something changed his mind to decide to come back. So we have to presume that it's what happened in the championship last year. We lost to Kerry to a last-minute score. That's how close we are. If we can get one or two or three guys back, that'll make the difference. Pat Gilroy coming back in as well for whatever reason. So it looks like Desi has kind of spent a month or two over the close season throwing the kitchen sink at this and saying, right, we need to get whoever we can back to get this island back. And I don't think, like you mentioned, James McCarthy, so I don't think they'll be looking any further than what's going to happen in the next couple of months. He's certainly, like James, a couple of years left, and there's no doubt about it. And I don't think he'd be thinking about it. Certainly wouldn't be thinking about retiring yet. But I think kind of underneath it all, they know that with the personnel and how far down the road they are with Desi and stuff, that this is a huge opportunity this year, and it's one they'll be going after hard.
When you talk to your former teammates, particularly lads that are still involved, do you talk football with them really at all? Like, or do you know, like, because they don't, you're not asking them how they're going or why are you back, or. Yeah,
no, to be honest, it's kind of, once you, like, even with Bernard, once you, like, when he was playing for a couple of years after I left, like, I wouldn't dream about asking about football. Like, not that I never liked people asking about it, but it's like the stuff you just, when you're in a dressing room, the stuff you just can't talk about. You just can't talk about. The stuff I never would have spoken about outside of the dressing room. So you can't expect it when you're on the other side to be asking the lads to give you a bit. So you'd meet and have a bit of crack and stuff. We leave them. Look, they're in their own little bubble, as I was in my own little bubble when I was involved. So there'll be plenty of time for us to chat about that sort of stuff when the likes of James and Fento and stuff would ever finish up. And but I think for now, like, they're in that bubble, and having been it myself, I fully respect that.
To be fair, Bernard got it all out in his book. I have to say, Alan, it was one of the most revealing, because we don't know much about the Dublin setup. Like, there's no point in saying anything different. We never have. There was some very revealing stuff in there, and just even how deep a thinker he is, and how much he thought about his own game. Like, there was a lot of, you probably even learned stuff from reading it, I'd say, if you did read it. Yeah, no, I did read it. I actually proofread it, it is. Yeah, no, I thought it was like a sports book. I think some of them have become a little stereotypical over the last number of years. With look, sports people now are like a bit more reluctant to maybe speak out than maybe sports people were 10 or 15 years ago. So everyone's minding the P's and Q's. But I think, in fairness to him, he decided to do it, and he wanted to do it right, and he kind of revealed what he thought was okay to reveal, and he did go into some of his own stuff as well. Some of his own mindset with injuries and stuff, and how he approached game and stuff, and that's obviously very, very, very personal stuff. And I would have known, as I said yourself, I would have been aware of some of it. I wouldn't have been aware that he maybe thought as deeply about some of the stuff, particularly the injuries and maybe when he was left out of the team and stuff. But I thought it was good, and everyone I talked about it certainly seemed to enjoy it. You mentioned about 06 against Mayo, Alan. I don't know if I've ever asked anybody that was involved in it, but what was it like being involved in the warm-up and the chaos that ensued down the hill end? Yeah, like it was mad at the time. And again, I was telling my son about it last night. How Mayo came down to our end and led by David Brady. But look, that's
that's football at that level. You throw everything you can at it. You do whatever you can to try and get it. Look, I've always said I don't think that had any. Like, we actually started that game.
Yeah,
really.
that's right. Yeah, people forget that because of the final result. Like,
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, well, I think I think we were 4 or 5 up in the first half, and we got to 7 up at some stage. So, kind of people actually have any bearing. That had no bearing on our performance anyway. It was what happened in the game that cost us that game. But it was look, afterwards you have a laugh and a joke about it. But I suppose at the time when you look at it, it's probably a little bit dangerous. Anything could have sparked. So it was we could do without that Sunday now. But look, I'm sure it was great excitement for the fans.
What would be your favourite kind of personal memory from the Dublin Mayo kind of rivalry? You're looking at it's probably not 06 given that you lost, but you beat them in DBG in 12 again, you beat them in the 13 final, you beat them in a replay semi-final in 15. Anything in particular kind of stand out for you?
Yeah, no, probably 15 was I didn't play in 13. So 15 was probably one. But I think like 06 was, like I've said before, I haven't too many regrets playing football, but certainly that game, if I was to pick a regret from my inter-county career, losing that game is probably it. And not so much for that we actually lost the game, but I think like the work that group had kind of put in under Pillar Caffrey and the kind of lengths we'd went to, like it was a shame that team that I played on didn't reach an All-Ireland final, and that was probably our best opportunity to do it. So kind of not reaching an All-Ireland final with that group with Pillar Caffrey in charge is a big regret. And look, we're playing Kerry in the final. We mightn't have won it, who knows? But certainly, I think we should have seen that game out. And there was a bit of naivety or whatever that day that cost us. Having been 7 points up, and we definitely should have closed that out. So that's probably my one biggest regret from my. But maybe my only regret from my inter-county career is not closing that game out that day.
I actually remember turning that game off because I was so sure you had won. I went over to watch Blackburn against Chelsea. I supported Blackburn at the time. But hard to stay interested. Lost 2-0 that day as well. Alan, you know the situation with Cluxton coming back in and getting the position back. Would that have been a hard conversation with the goalies who were there, Michael O'Hanlon and Evan Comfort is now back on the. He was wearing 16, I think, the last day. Would that have been a tough conversation?
Yeah, I'd imagine it was. Like, and to be fair to the two lads, I think Evan had been injured for a while, but David O'Hanlon had come up, and they'd both done really, really well. Like, Evan's a solid keeper. David O'Hanlon had come in. I hadn't seen much of him until the National League, but he was excellent as well. Like he didn't put a foot wrong. Now, that's not the same when it comes to the white heat of kind of championship battle with 5 minutes to go on Sunday. That's a different story than say a league game earlier on in the year. But look, I think, like I said, I'm not sure what would have been going on in the background, but obviously Stephen coming back in, it's very difficult to leave him out when he comes back in. And I think the guys are probably kind of young enough to understand, maybe take it on the chin. Okay, this is maybe for a year or two or whatever it is. Even if it is 2 years, it could finish this year, and then the two lads will have an opportunity to battle it out for the goalkeeper's jersey. But I suppose with Stephen coming back, I'm glad he came back, even though I was surprised because he isn't usually one for changing his mind. He would generally stick to his guns. But I'm kind of glad he came back, and when he does decide to go, he goes. That kind of fans can get to give him that Dublin fans can get to give him maybe the send off or whatever you want to call it that he very much deserves, and because for him to finish up in the way he finished up a couple of years ago, I think I found it a bit disappointing at the time, and I think when he looks back, or maybe he did when he had to think about it, he decided, okay, maybe that's not the way I want to finish up after 20 years. But I'm glad, obviously known him very well, I'm glad that he has come back, and when he does decide to go again, hopefully we'll get a few more games out. But when he does decide to go again, that the fans can't give him the send off that he richly deserves.
Is he good on a night out? Is he good on a night out?
Oh yeah, great, yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's not, like, I wouldn't say it's not a show from Stephen. He is a very serious character. He takes his football very, very serious, and he demands standards of others around him that kind of meet his own standards. But once he gets out and lets the hair down, now there's no stopping him. Yeah, we've had some great nights. Yeah.
Speaking of finishing up, Alan, the way you finished up must bring back even satisfaction now. Like, you talk about going out. Like, we JJ on the show earlier, he went out after winning All Ireland after a replay, getting one of the greatest hooks in history, beating Tipperary, which is always great as well. And he went out while he still had something to offer. You kicked that point against Kerry in 15. It was probably maybe your last touch as an inter-county footballer. You win the All Ireland. I think you had your young fella in your arms, didn't you? I think the two of you, there might have been onions. Someone was chopping onions around the time, I think, as well. But that must bring you even great satisfaction now, like, to go out at the very, very top.
It does, yeah. And I'm very appreciative of it, because having spoken to sports with Gaelic players, hurlers, other people since, not many get to finish kind of on their own terms, if you want to call it that. I was talking to Jackie Tyrrell at the weekend, and the little man was, I think he's nine All Irelands, and he ended up finishing up like on the bench, not even getting on in his last year. I think they were playing
beaten by Tipperary.
By Tipperary, and I was chatting to him, and I said, "Did you get on?" He said, "No, I thought I should have been brought on, but he never even got on the field like on his last day." So I'm sure that leaves a little bit of a bitter taste. He's obviously well over it now at this stage. He's fairly content with his Ireland medals, I say. But at the time, that's difficult to take. And just when we were comparing stories, like, you get to realise how lucky you actually are that you do get to finish on kind of on your own terms, and you're not left with that little bit of regret after giving 14 years of your life. That the last thing you want to do is walk away kind of feeling bitter or holding regrets about the last couple of months of your career. So and then obviously to do it against Kerry in an All-Ireland final, like, that's kind of the stuff dreams are made of. So I know how lucky I am that I managed to go that way. And I remember sitting down with Jim actually after, when I went to meet him. I met him in Starbucks on Stephen's Green, actually. And I was a bit emotional myself. Like I said, "Look, Jim, I'm going to finish up." Like, and I would have thought that he was kind of expecting it, but he tried to ask me to hang on for another year, and said, "Look, the lads will be very disappointed, and would you give it one more year?" But kind of, I knew if I gave it, I kind of done my year on the bench and was happy with that, and I had a second child and stuff, so the time was definitely right for me. And I think had I went back and kind of back for another year, and then you spend a year on the bench not getting on in some games, it just might have tainted it a little bit. But so I know how lucky I was to be able to go out on those terms, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kerry there. Kerry are against Tyrone this weekend, and a lot of people have this notion that Tyrone are coming to the Boyle. Kerry don't like it up them, and that they'll somehow get bullied this weekend. And David Moore not being there as well is another thing that's been thrown at them. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've seen bits and pieces of them. Obviously, the two Cliffords have become so important for Kerry, and I think, like, they'll definitely be targeted in a good way at the weekend. And I think it's how the two lads respond to that, and how they. But I think, I think the two lads are well able to look after themselves. There's no doubt about that. But it is going to be physical, and it's certainly Tyrone smell blood. There's no doubt about that. They see an opportunity there that here's an opportunity for us to knock Kerry out, and then it's such an open championship. But look, it's difficult. Like any team with David Clifford in it, I think, again, Kerry are just coming nicely to the Boyle after you win an All Ireland. Look, it's difficult after you win an All Ireland to come back and do it again. Is that hunger the same as it was 12 months ago? And like, we're definitely going to find that out this Saturday afternoon when Kerry play Tyrone. But I think it looks to me like, look, Jack Connor's a very experienced manager, so it looks to me that they've taken it easy coming out of the winter break, and they've kind of ramped it up as the season gone by to try and peak at the right time. And if that's true and Kerry can't peak at the weekend, I all things being equal, I would expect Kerry to win it, but it's going to be one hell of a battle. Maybe even more so the Dublin Mayo, because I think Tyrone do really smell blood here, as you say. They see an opportunity, and there's a perception that if you can stop the two Cliffords, you're going to beat Kerry. But there's a lot of danger elsewhere as well. And when you put a lot of focus onto two men, it leaves guys around maybe with a little bit of extra space that can cause a lot of damage. So I think Kerry will win.
Michael?
Yeah, no, just do you get much? What sort of enjoyment do you get even watching David Clifford as an inside, a lad that played inside forward and obviously played out centre forward as well? I think you won Footballer of the Year, did you actually, as a centre forward? But what sort of like pleasure do you get about watching a forward like that, watching his movement, left and right? Like he's an absolute joy to watch.
He is a joy to watch. I think everyone that knows football loves to get the opportunity to see him either on TV, but especially live. But I think for me, what I look out for is how is the other team going to stop him? Like, how are they going to play? Who's going to mark him, and who's going to be the extra man around him? And that's the very intriguing part for me. Like, we know how special David Clifford is. He can score off left and right. He dummy hop, dummy solo, whatever you want. He can mix it in the air. He can mix it rough if you want. So he has it all. So for me, it's how teams stop him. And I've seen Philly speak about it in a couple of articles recently about how you might stop him. So when I watched the match the weekend, the first thing I'd be looking for is, right, who's on Clifford and who else is around him to stop him scoring, and when he gets the ball, is there 2-3 Tyrone men can rush into him, and what space is that leaving him behind or whatever. And to be fair to David Clifford, when he does get double teamed or even triple teamed, he still has that vision to be able to pick passes out inside and stuff, and he draws a lot of attention, and like, even when he gets quieting down, drawing that attention, he can open up a lot of space for other guys around him. So that's the intriguing thing for me, is how do Tyrone stop him? Because look, David's nearly guaranteed. He's nearly guaranteed 3 or 4 points at worst in a match in his current form. So it's kind of, can Tyrone keep him to 3 points? And David thinking if they can keep the 3 points we play, they probably have a pretty good chance of beating Kerry at the weekend.
The other couple of games, would you have any thoughts on who will win Armagh, Monaghan and Cork Derry?
Yeah, Cork Derry is an interesting one. Like, who'd have thought Cork, like, looking at them a few months ago, will be back in an All-Ireland quarter-final against Derry, and maybe some people giving them a chance in it. Like, but look, you have to hand it to them. They have a bit of momentum behind them, Cork, now. There's no doubt about it, and you can see the bit of belief shining through in them last week. They've beaten Mayo. Derry do look very solid though, but I think Derry still have to prove themselves in Croke Park. Like, I know they've done it in the Ulster Championship in tight kind of provincial ground and stuff. So I think it's a different story when you get to Croke Park. So it'll be interesting to see how Derry respond. And look, are Derry real All-Ireland contenders? I think the weekend will probably reveal a lot, but I'd probably expect Derry to win that. But I think it's been a positive. It's been a positive year for Cork. Whatever happens, they're kind of back in the top 8, and I suppose that probably would have been their aim to start the year. So I think John Cleary would be happy with that. In terms of the other game, look, it's a difficult one to call again. I think on any given day it could go either way. I think just the edge Kieran Donaghy and Kieran McGeeney seem to have given Armagh. They just seem to be going in the right direction, and I think Armagh sneaked that one.
Alan, you mentioned about the Cliffords will always get treatment, particularly David. What type of treatment, say, would have been dished out to yourself back in the day? It was a bit more liberal back in the day, where I think there wasn't cameras on defenders, which was grand, which was good for defenders, maybe not for forwards. But what sort of different type of treatment would you got in club and county games down through the years, when most teams know that if they stop you or put you off your game, that they're going to have a much better chance of winning?
Yeah, and it's probably a mixture. Occasionally there'd be a bit of verbal, but there wasn't a huge amount of verbals now. And like, I think like kind of verbals for me, where if someone engaged with verbals with me, I was kind of happy enough to give it back. So that never really threw me. But kind of physical stuff more so, and just like the really good defenders were the ones that just denied you possession. And like, if you look at, say, the likes of Mark O'Shea, or Ryan McMenamin, stuff, they always defended out in front. Conor Gormley, they always defended out in front and tried to cut off space. They kind of, I suppose, kind of defenders would have known I would have liked to make runs, kind of longish runs, whereas Bernard played inside. You make short, sharp runs. I'd make kind of longish runs to maybe try and get on a pass in midfield. So somebody defended out in front trying to cut those runs off, I found difficult. They were the defenders I found hardest to play against. Generally, when a fella's pulling and stuff, you can, like a little jink and you can't get away. But the really smart defenders who defended out in front and cut that space off in front of you were the ones that I struggled against. And like the likes of Mark, I mentioned the likes of Conor Gormley, who's very good at it as well. Like, Conor Gormley would defend you 7 or 8 yards in front of you. So like unless there was a long ball over the top, it was very difficult to actually get out in front of him to win possession. And he was probably the smartest at it, in terms of denying your possession. And then he was obviously tough when, if he did manage to get on the ball, he was a tough man to get around as well. But those sort of guys, and I think the best defenders always defended in front. Sean Marty Lockhart was another one, always defended a few yards in front. So very difficult to get any possession off. But in terms of treatment, like I think when you got to the latter stages of Croke Park, most guys were, or the latter stage of Championship, most guys were, or even playing Division 1 league, most guys generally wanted to play football. So there probably wasn't a huge amount of it, and I tried to avoid. I tried to avoid as much contact as I could. So if there was, look, you learned when you were training with the likes of Ciaran Whelan, these guys, you learn to don't go in there unless you want to. If you remember Wheel out the big gloves, if you got you in there, it was curtain. So I always tended to try stay away from that physical contact. Whereas obviously David's a little bit different. He's a bigger man than I am, so he can take a bit more punishment there. But kind of my game is very much about evasion and staying away from hits, which I managed to do most of the time.
Can I just ask you briefly? It's something I meant to ask you. I don't know if you've ever spoken about before. When did you develop the hop? This hop that bought you steps.
I don't know. That's just kind of. That was in. I don't know what I've done it with the club. It's actually very difficult to do on club pitches, because if it's, you're playing club matches and it'd be wet or whatever, if the ball, it just worked perfectly in Croke Park because you get a perfect bounce back up. But I don't know. Yeah, I never really realised, to be honest. It was just something I kind of did naturally. And it wasn't until a few years in, and maybe there was kind of video and stuff, people started to talk about this. Oh, he's taking about 12 steps there while he had the ball up here over his head. I never ever got blue for in a club match or a county match. So I don't know what it was about. And then when I did look back, like I definitely overcarried with it. There was no doubt about it. But generally, I always got away with it for some reason.
Do you have a favorite?
I'm playing intermediate now. The referees be watching out for it now. Unfortunately, I can't take lads on like I used to. So I just get it and give it off to the young lads.
Do you have a favourite for the All Ireland from here? Like, we can't call any of these 4 games this weekend. I mean, maybe Derry, but after that, very hard.
It is very hard. Yeah, that's just look. I suppose our job, people are listening. They want to hear who we think is going to win these games. But I think anyone's saying with any, like if you look at the bookies, I think Dublin are heavy. They're heavy enough favourites in the bookies. I could be wrong now, but it's very difficult to call. It like it is it is a very open championship, and every team has like kind of there's no one has come into these quarterfinals flying. Like there's been a bit of inconsistency, a few question marks about a few areas, but I think it is hard to look beyond Dublin or Kerry. But in saying that, both teams could be beaten at the weekend, and we wouldn't be surprised. But I think all things being equal, if both teams played to anywhere near the potential they have, I would expect Dublin and Kerry to go through. And I don't think Dublin and Kerry can meet, can they? Semi-final, can they?
I think they can, because
can they?
It's an open draw, but there won't be repeat pairings.
Okay, yeah, then they can, yeah.
No matter what prediction you make, Alan, anyway, it would be better than Shane, who got the upper hand on me when we did our power rankings and had Galway number 1, who are now out of the championship.
I know. To be fair to Galway, this is why I have a little question mark over Mayo as well, is that they were well beaten in the first half. Galway could be wrong, but Galway have 8 wides in the first half.
So they had a lot anyway.
16 or 17 chances in the first half, so they could have been. They could have been out to go. They Sean Kelly, no doubt, carrying a severe injury. Damien Comer off at half time, and Shane Walsh, for whatever reason, out of form or stuff, wasn't playing anywhere near. We know what he's capable of. He'd be disappointed with that. But so they've kind of beaten. They've stumbled over a Galway team that was no doubt under pressure with injuries and stuff. So we're probably their 3 best players. Actually, definitely their 3 best players. So that just puts a little question mark in my head about where exactly Mayo are at. And there's a bit of inexperience in the Mayo team as well. Like if we look at their full back line, and there probably is a little bit of inexperience there, and maybe a few guys that haven't been exposed to a game like this, what we're going to see on Sunday. I suppose the only thing with the crowd and stuff is that because it's a double header, the crowd kind of mightn't be as like instead of it being split half and half, it'll probably be split 4 ways and stuff. And you probably get a lot of people staying on to watch the Dublin Mayo match, but some could drift off, and that can affect the atmosphere in the stadium, because we know from kind of Mayo Dublin matches in the past, when this game comes to the melting pot and there's whatever 80,000 people in the stadium, it can get pretty intense, and like there's no doubt the pressure comes on when that happens. So I think there is a couple of guys in the Dublin team as well, but there's certainly a couple of guys in the Mayo team that kind of won't have been exposed to anything like this before. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that.
When you're playing in front of 80,000 people and the place is absolutely rocking, does it ever affect you in the sense of keeping your composure or taking you out of your comfort zone?
I think it can. I don't think it's could have put my finger on it and say here's a time I was affected, but kind of when you look back, like I think when you make a mistake, like when you're playing, you tend to forget about the crowd, you're caught up in the game and stuff. But I think when you make a mistake, particularly as a forward, say you have a wide and like an easy wide or whatever, the pressure comes on your next kick. And I've had games where, like in Kerry, 07, I think. I'd 07. Can't remember exactly, but I'd 6. One of the Kerry All-Ireland semi-finals, I had 6 shots and 6 wides in the game. And that was definitely, I think it was 07, I can't remember the exact year, but 6 shots and 6 wides. So that was definitely a result, and some easy ones as well. So that was definitely a result. I missed the first and I missed the second one, and then, oh Jesus, and then you just start to panic when the ball's coming, you're taking the shot and stuff. But sometimes all you need is just one to land, and then it's a settler. But if you have a young lad making a couple of mistakes in a row, where he gets dispossessed and the big roar goes up from the crowd, like, you're not really sure how lads are going to respond to that until they're in the heat of battle. So it definitely can have a part to play, and maybe sometimes even subconsciously, like, as I said, it's hard for me to put my finger on. Like, I wasn't out in Croke Park thinking, oh God, I'm nervous now because I heard a shout from the crowd, but you can probably just start to play a little bit in your subconscious and can have an effect, particularly on forwards.
Okay, well, Alan, you've been brilliant with your time. Really appreciate you joining us, and enjoy the matches at the weekend.
Good stuff, lads. You too. It was a good weekend for it.
Cheers, Alan. Good man.
Okay, great to have Alan on there. Several-time All-Ireland winner as well. Just we've gone through a fair bit today. Ciaran Carey with JJ Delaney with Alan Brogan. A lot of All-Irelands and All-Stars between them. Yeah,
a lot of All-Irelands, a lot of 3 all-time legends as well. Yeah, it's like, listen, I know there's no hurling this weekend, but like the four football games, you'd be licking your lips waiting for, and I can't wait. Generally, like Kerry Tyrone, I think it's fascinating. Like, one of the main reasons I would say Tyrone won the All-Ireland was because Clifford wasn't on the pitch. You know, he came off with cramp. They obviously sorted that issue last year. Never had anything like that sort of a problem last year. He was sent off against him in the league a couple of years ago. I remember there was a bit of mess, and there's going to be a bit of messing. There's going to be a bit of messing on Saturday evening as well. And obviously with the game being postponed twice in 2021 as a result of COVID and an outbreak in the Tyrone camp, like, there's lots of little niggles there that they're going to make it very, very spicy. And I think the fact that it looks like Tyrone have come back to the boil a bit makes it particularly interesting. And the fact that it looks like Kerry maybe have come back to the boil as well. And like, Kerry haven't looked like, confident defending All-Ireland champions maybe until the last. If they get over this game, maybe they can go and win back-to-back, but they're going to have some hurdle to overcome on Saturday.
Are you Team Clifford or Team Canavan here?
Yeah, so the two Canavans are absolutely flying as well. Isn't that, like, it's a great way of billing it as well, isn't it? And it just kind of looks like Tyrone are kind of just going to play Rory and Dara and try and let them cut loose a bit. Darren McCurry probably hasn't been in the sort of form he was in 2 years ago, but if he kind of regains that, and you have Peter Hart and a few other lads coming to the table as well, yeah, geez, it's the more you go into it, probably the tougher it is to call. But I do think Kerry and Dublin will come out after the weekend, and probably Derry. And I'm always reluctant to go against Monaghan because you know what you're going to get from them every day they go out. But I think Armagh might just squeak that, and Ciaran McGeeney will be back into a semi-final for the first time since Kildare 2010. Would it be right in saying as manager? He's been he's been in a heap of quarterfinals, but I think only one semi-final.
Oh, pure solid hape of him if we're to use our local vernacular. I'm just looking at Kerry's progress all the way up to the quarter-final. Beat Tipperary out the gate 25 points to 5. Beat Clare out the gate 5-14 to 15 points. Defeat to Kerry 119 to 17. Unimpressive against Cork, although I think Cork's performances since would paint that in a better light.
They franked the form in horse parlance, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. 114 to 15 points. And Stephen Sherlock had a chance at the end that he blazed over that could have gotten that, you'd nearly back him to score a goal from that situation. That would have meant a draw. And then beat Louth out the gate 5-24 to 11. What do we have to go on here to suggest that Kerry are going to somehow really produce this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't necessarily have to really produce. I'm not sure if they have to produce a 5-star performance. Tyrone have been, average. Tyrone could have been out of the championship, am I right in saying, if John Heston had scored that free? Do you know what I mean? They've limped along. I think maybe we're getting clouded by a performance against Donegal, who, had been pretty poor up until maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it's two teams not in unbelievable form. Looks like they've turned the corner a bit. But I think probably Kerry are probably going just the better of the two. I think it'll be marginal enough though. And yeah, Clifford will be double marked, triple marked. They'll do whatever they have to do to keep him off his game. And I think any manager playing against Kerry will run the risk of just keep Clifford as quiet as you possibly can. If somebody else steps up, if 2 other lads step up and beat you, then fair enough. But don't have Clifford beat you by himself. And I think that's what Logan and Dewar will be looking at.
Conor Myler on Paddy Clifford. I'm sure we'll see that again. Who do Kerry have to mark the two Cannabins? So I'd say Thomas Sullivan will probably mark one of them because he's that size profile and speed that might suit maybe Dara. Then who marks Rory? He's a very difficult player to mark also. And here's a question for you. From play, which set of brothers are going to score more?
From play, I go with the Cliffords.
Yeah, you can't.
I go with I think it'd be something like maybe 1-5, 1-6 to maybe 5 points, something like that. I think one of the Cliffords, probably most likely David, will bag a goal, I'd say. Yeah,
is the dog starting to give you a bit of bother?
I just wagging and getting a bit anxious. Hasn't been out in a couple of hours.
Okay, so we've more or less touched on everything in the world of the GAA at the moment. Pádraig O'Malley says, who do you think will win the Mayo-Dublin game? I think Dublin, but I wouldn't be saying it with any massive confidence.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be predicting too many of the games this weekend with any confidence. They're all real margin. I think somebody had up there that there were 2 or 3 point handicaps in each of the games. That's just the way it is. And A Sully 180 has asked if there's a quiz. There's no quiz today. I'm a bit caught for time to prepare questions, but I promise you I'll have a bumper quiz next week. How's that?
Yeah. Holly's getting in the way of us trying to have the crack here.
Yeah, I actually I did give the answers. I gave the answers to the last quiz online there yesterday. I'll come up with a bumper quiz next week, I promise you.
Okay, that's it from the show today. A reminder, if you want to get a live club fundraiser, get on to us here, events@ourgame.ie. Same in terms of the coaching clinics, events@ourgame.ie. Also, ourstore.ie is the place to get your official Our Game merchandise. Michael, take it handy.
Just a word on this, Shane, quickly.
Oh, yeah.
This is the Dylan Quirk Foundation jersey. I never normally wear these colours, but for the best of causes, you can get the jersey at DylanQuirkFoundation.com. A great cause, and to help get all the young kids in the country cardiac screened. So go to DylanQuirkFoundation.com.
Brilliant stuff. And if you want to get the audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, Jeno.